I will now call the meeting to order and ask that we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, before I take roll and I call the roll, I want to welcome Dr. Kenneth Sturgis to the commission. We're very happy to have you here, sir. I had the privilege of spending most of the day yesterday with him in his orientation, and he's going to be a big asset to us, and I think everybody will enjoy getting to know him. We welcome him, and I'll tell you a little bit about him so you'll know where he comes from. He's from Hereford, Texas, and is owner and operator at Hereford Veterinary Clinic. He practices mixed animal medicine, primarily treating beef cattle, equine, and some small animals through orthopedic surgeries. He's a member of the Texas Veterinary Medical Association Board of Directors, Texas Equine Veterinary Association, Academy of Veterinary Consultants, American Association of Bovine Practitioners, and American Veterinary Medical Association. Additionally, Dr. Sturgis serves on the Texas Tech University School of Veterinary Medicine Admissions Committee and Texas A&M Veterinary Medical Diagnostic Laboratory Directors Advisory Council. He received a bachelor's degree in animal science and a doctor of veterinary medicine from Oklahoma State University. So, Dr. Sturgis, we welcome you here, and we look forward to serving with you. I'll now call roll. Chairman is present. Jimmy Ruth Evans.
Here.
Melanie Johnson.
Here.
Ken Jordan. Barrett Klein. Here. Wendy Payne. Joe Leathers. Here. Thomas Oakes. Here. Joe Osterkamp.
Here.
Jay Klein. Here. Benjamin Turner.
Here.
Johnny Trotter. Here. Dr. Kenneth Sturgis.
Here.
Okay. Do I have a motion to excuse any of the absence of the commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the absence of Commissioner Payne and Commissioner Jordan.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to excuse the absence of Commissioner Jordan and Commissioner Payne. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by no. That motion passes unanimously. Okay, items 3 and 4 are closed executive session to receive legal advice, discuss pending or contemplated litigation and settlement offers as permitted by section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code, and closed executive session to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of specific commission employees as permitted by section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code. We will now go into executive session for items 3 and 4 on the agenda, and we will reconvene in open session no earlier than 9 a.m. Okay, our closed session ended at 28 minutes after 9, and we're back in session at this time. And the next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the 422nd meeting. Do I have a motion to do so?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes of the 422nd meeting in November 12, 2026.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion or any questions? All in favor of the motion to approve the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed by no. And the motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the report of the Executive Director, Dr. Kenneth.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. My pleasure to present my report to you this morning. As far as agency operations and affairs goes, it's happy to report that we remain at 201.5 full-time positions field. In regards to the Rural Veterinary Incentive Program, RVI provides educational loan repayment assistance, payment of tuition and fees up to $180,000 to eligible veterinarians and veterinary medical students who demonstrate a commitment to working in the designated rural Texas county. The program offers up to $45,000 for each full-time veterinary service in rural communities in need of veterinarian. For the 2024 application period, there were 17 applicants received. 3 of these applicants were awarded approximately $134,000. These applicants are practicing in Erath, Washington, and Fayette counties. I mentioned the veterinary medical loan repayment program. Mr. Rex White, the Texas Animal Health Commission's authorized personnel supervisor, will provide an update on the VMLRP in his presentation later this morning. The cattle fever tick treatment field trial, which was appropriated $316,000 in the last biennium. This 2-year trial initiated at the Laguna Atascosa National Wildlife Refuge in Cameron County was abandoned at day 112 that we discussed previously. The study was moved to the USDA ARS research facility in Edinburgh, Texas, for a more controlled environment where the cattle can begin for inspection and treatment as required. The Moorefield project is proceeding as planned, and data and sample collection are ongoing. The trial has been completed through day 257 of 308, and is on schedule to be completed in mid-April of this year. We should have some preliminary data in regards to this trial at the beginning of the summer. Planning continues for the residue project that will be done in conjunction with the Texas A&M Animal Science Department, and is projected to begin in the early summer of 2025. The second trial will be conducted at the Laguna Atascosa National Wildlife Refuge. Will begin in the spring of 2026. Due to the need to abandon the study at the Laguna Atascosa National Wildlife Refuge site, the Texas Animal Health Commission has asked for an additional $30,000 as an exceptional item in the next biennium to complete all stages of this trial. The LBB has added this dollar amount to the Animal Health Commission's base budget for the next biennium. On a national update, in regards to cattle fever ticks, the treatment for the nilgai antelopes, the nematodes, a new categorical exclusion for nematode use will expand the use of nematodes to the cattle fever tick eradication program counties, and would include applications to wildlife and some cattle. This exclusion has been submitted to the FDA for their approval. The USDA cattle fever tick eradication program is working out the material transfer agreement with BASF, the company that produces the nematode product, and hoping to receive a small amount of this product to begin the project early spring at Willow Sea and Cameron counties. We talked about the Rio Bravo buffer zone in Mexico. The USDA, Seneca, and the Mexican states of Tamaulipas and Coahuila have worked cooperatively to establish a cattle fever tick buffer zone with focused pilot project in areas along the Rio Grande, mirroring the permanent quarantine zone in Texas. The USDA allocated approximately $150,000 to contribute to the project in 2025. The second project will run from October of 2024 through September of 2025. The USDA has asked that there be an increase in wildlife surveillance during this next year. In the state of Coahuila, the USDA pledged $48,548. And Mexico is providing $49,381 US dollars. We utilized in 70 production units that have been identified. In the first quarter of the fiscal year 2025, over 1,700 head of cattle have been inspected and treated with low tick infestations being identified to date. In Tamaulipas, the USDA pledged $99,541, with Mexico providing $54,715 US dollars for use of 23 production units identified along the border. Treatments to be included be used to be tick vaccine with a macrocytic lactone in the cattle, and then ivermectin treated corn will be provided to the deer. So to date, there's been no work reported in the state of Tamaulipas. The Asian longhorn tick. We will continue our monthly stakeholder calls to discuss surveillance efforts around the United States on March 10th. The latest discovery of the tick was made in Mayes County, Oklahoma in August 2024. To date, 21 states and Washington, D.C. have been affected by the tick. Research is done by the USDA-ARS found that the Asian longhorn tick does not transmit the Vivax ovis, which is the cause of the dates of cattle fever. Affected states have been using producer education and outreach to mitigate the risk of introductions. Since 2021, the closure of the state and federal laboratory, large-scale statewide ectoparasite surveillance has greatly decreased to the point the agency has only a limited capacity to identify potential cattle fever ticks and other tick species in and around the current fever tick quarantine areas in South Texas and along the Texas-Mexico border. The Texas Animal Health Commission is requesting additional funding in the form of an exceptional item in the next biennium to procure additional equipment and personnel to increase foreign pests such as cattle fever tick, Asian longhorn tick, and the New World screwworm surveillance more broadly throughout Texas by establishing the Texas Animal Health Commission ectoparasite field of identification. Bring you up to date on New World screwworm. In November of 24, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, APHIS Veterinary Services, temporarily suspended the importation of live animals originating from or transiting Mexico based on the confirmation of New World screwworms in cattle in the Mexican state of Chiapas near the Guatemala border. The southern border was shut down for 70 days while the USDA, APHIS, and Seneca developed a pre-clearance inspection and treatment protocol for the New World screwworm. As of January 31st, APHIS reduced the restrictions on the importation of live cattle and bison from Mexico. In addition to meeting all previously established import requirements, imported animals must successfully complete pre-clearance inspection and treatment for screwworm and import through APHIS approved facilities associated with specific ports of entry. Ports of entry were opened first in New Mexico, with first cattle being crossed on February the 5th. Horses originating from or having resided in Mexico within 60 days immediately preceding export to the United States must complete the established equine import screwworm protocol. This includes pre-export treatment and examination, as well as treatment examinations and a 7-day quarantine in the APHIS approved permanent import quarantine facility upon arrival. Horses transiting Mexico will be required to complete screwworm mitigation upon arrival at the quarantine facility. As far as Mexico is concerned, as of February 21st, 67 cases of New World screwworms have been reported in cattle, horses, pigs, and sheep. The cases have been detected in the southern states of Chiapas, Campeche, and Tabasco. Mexico has not reported surveillance efforts concerning wildlife pests. Their efforts seem to be focused on farms and checkpoints. They have recently established 2 more checkpoints in southern Mexico. The Isthmus of Tehuantepec will serve as a new buffer zone, receiving most of the sterile New World screwworm flies produced at the Panamanian facility each week. This capacity is about 110 million flies. It may take 6 months to a year to establish and verify the effectiveness of the buffer zone. 2 New World screwworm fly distribution centers are nearing completion in southern Mexico. Mexico is said to be retrofitting a production facility of sterile newborn flies with a capacity of up to 60 million flies per week, which should be up and running in 9 months to a year. As far as the Texas response goes, the Texas Animal Health Commission self-initiated preparedness activities in response to the rise of New World screwworm detections in Central America beginning in March of 2024. Efforts to train on, maintain, and establish components of response plans are underway and will continue to evolve with the situation. The preparation, education, and discussion with federal and state partners, including USDA, veterinary services here in Texas, cattle fever tick eradication program to include their management and inspectors, the Texas Department of State Health Services, Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, the Texas Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners, the Texas Veterinary Medical Association, and the Texas A&M Veterinary Medical Diagnostic Lab, and industry partners, including cattle, swine, sheep, and goats representatives, continue as situation continues to evolve. In November of 2024, education and outreach materials were provided to Texas authorized veterinarians, which account for 2,400 veterinarians. Texas Animal Health Commission and USDA personnel across Texas have been trained to conduct inspections, take and submit samples, and perform treatments in the event of a New World screwworm response. Education and outreach efforts to raise awareness continue to be conducted. Reports of maggots or suspicious wounds can be made to the Texas Animal Health Commission Region Office, offices, the Texas Animal Health Commission Central Office, or the Texas Animal Health Commission Vet on Call after hours. Potential wildlife detection can be reported to Texas Parks and Wildlife, and if suspected in humans, reports can be made to the Department of State Health Services or the CDC. As far as the USDA response goes, the USDA has developed two 20-member strike teams, one for the Southeast United States and one for the Southwest United States. The teams will assist in New World screwworm response efforts and will be trained to do area surveillance as well as to release sterile New World screwworm flies. The Cattle Fever Tick Eradication Program has developed treatment protocols for Mexican stray cattle and horses gathered along the Rio Grande. As far as other disease information goes, equine infectious anemia for the calendar year 2024, we've confirmed EIA in 78 horses. To date, in 2025, we have detected 8 positive horses. The detections have been mainly in bush track racing quarter horses, with the occasional detections in horses that have made their way into team roping or bell racing. In 2024, a cluster of positive horses was found at a sanctioned North Texas racetrack. Iatrogenic transmission involving the use of contaminated injectable products and/or blood doping is likely the cause associated with the above-mentioned cases. Contaminated IV sets, syringes, and needles are also a concern with iatrogenic spread of this disease. Now on to highly pathogenic avian influenza in the poultry. The current outbreak, which started in February 2022, has affected over 163 million birds. There have been 1,600 affected premises in 50 states and in Puerto Rico. In Texas, since the outbreak started in February 22, we have had 14 positive HPAI premises, which included 2 commercial premises, one in April of 2022, which was a game ranch in North Texas. And then we had a large commercial egg layer premises affected in April of 2024. The latest detections here in Texas occurred in January. One backyard non-poultry occurrence in Brazoria County, as well as one backyard non-poultry occurrence in Burnett County. As far as the dairy avian influenza situation goes, that was detected in March of 2025. Influenza H5N1 with a genotype B3.1.13. To date, 18 states. There have been 975 confirmed premises, with the state of California having over 700, almost 50 premises affected. To date, Texas has had 27 affected premises with dairies, both in the Panhandle and Stephenville milk sheds. We have not discovered animal movement associated with the infections in these dairies in the 2 milk sheds. The last known test positive premises showing clinical signs was in December of 2024. And that dairy was located in the Panhandle. This dairy was totally depopulated in the summer of 2024. They began to restock this dairy in last fall. Our epidemiologic efforts to date have not shown the source of the infection in the dairy. So in January 2021 or 2025, the USDA NVSL National Veterinary Services Laboratory confirmed the whole genome sequence first detection of highly pathogenic avian influenza of genotype B.1 in Nevada dairy cattle. This confirmation was a result of state tracing and investigation following the initial detection of silo testing under the USDA's National Milk Testing Strategy, Nevada. The USDA has continued to work with the Nevada Department of Agriculture by conducting additional on-farm investigations and the gathering of additional epidemiologic information to better understand the detection and limit further disease spread. Keep in mind, this is the first detection of this genotype in dairy cattle and appears to be a single spillover event from migratory birds into dairy cattle. The genotype D.1 represents the predominant genotype in the North American flyways this past fall and winter, and has been identified in wild birds, mammals, and there have been spillovers into domestic poultry to date. In February the 13th of this year, there was a H5N1 detected, the genotype D1.1 in dairy in Arizona. And there's additional epidemiologic information that's being sought out by both the Arizona Department of Agriculture as well as the USDA concerning this detection. In December of 2024, the USDA put out a federal order requiring that all be mandatory testing of unpasteurized milk intended for interstate movement. And they did this under their authority under the Animal Health Protection Act. With this, they initiated the USDA APHIS National Milk Testing Strategy, and this strategy facilitates comprehensive H5N1 surveillance of the nation's milk supply and dairy herds with three objectives. One, to increase USDA's and public health partners' understanding of where the virus is present in the United States. Two, support the rapid implementation of enhanced biosecurity measures to decrease the risk of transmission to other livestock. And three, form critical efforts to protect farm workers to help lower the risk of exposure. There are 5 strategies involved with this milk testing. The first stage of this strategy is to develop a regional prevalence. Stage two of this strategy develops the state status of this disease. Stage 3 will detect, respond, and eliminate the virus at the specific dairy level. Stage 4 of the strategy will demonstrate H5N1 disease freedom within a state, and then stage 5 will ultimately demonstrate H5N1 freedom from the U.S. dairy cattle. Texas will begin the national milk testing strategy by conducting plant silo monitoring. The Texas Animal Health Commission is working on a sampling protocol with the Department of State Health Services. DSHS administers the pasteurized milk ordinance established by the FDA and will conduct the silo testing. If a positive silo is detected, the Animal Health Commission will be responsible for coordinating the collection of bulk milk tank samples from each dairy and the positive silo to detect the positive dairy. The Texas Animal Health Commission will work with the positive dairy to mitigate spread and ultimately eliminate the virus from the premises. Another disease that the poultry industry has been dealing with here of late is avian metapneumovirus. The avian metapneumovirus is an RNA virus which causes highly contagious respiratory viral disease in wild birds and domestic poultry, including turkeys, ducks, and chickens. The virus was initially detected in turkeys in South Africa in 1978, and it's eventually spread to the United States in 1996. Beginning in 2024, avian metapneumovirus began spreading rapidly through much of the United States and has now been diagnosed in 26 states, including Texas. Common symptoms include mild to severe respiratory signs, ocular discharge, swollen sinuses, mild to severe drop in egg production, and decrease in eggshell quality. There is no specific treatment for this virus. The diagnosis of avian metapneumovirus can be challenging because the symptoms somewhat mimic highly pathogenic avian influenza and other avian diseases. Also, like hot avian influenza, migratory wild birds and waterfowl are natural hosts for this virus. Preventing avian metapneumovirus is limited to enhanced biosecurity and management practices. Presently, there are no licensed vaccines available in the United States, although the USDA Center for Veterinary Biologics has recently approved emergency vaccine products. In response, for both killed and there are 3 live virus vaccine products, In response to the detection of avian metapneumovirus, the Texas Animal Health Commission approved the use of a live attenuated metapneumovirus here recently. The Texas Animal Health Commission staff will continue to monitor the avian metapneumovirus and will continue to update the commission on future developments. Part C of the waivers variances, there were 8 waivers requested, 6 of which have been approved, and I can certainly answer any questions about those and any other questions you may have.
Dr. Dingus, one question, and I think I know the answer to the question, but roughly how many cattle come out of Mexico into Texas?
Into Texas
Or into,
or in the United
in the
States, I've
United
heard
States.
upwards to 1.5 million.
That's what I thought. But we got 1.5 million cattle coming out of Mexico. There's screwworms in southern New Mexico with checkpoints. I'm sure the protocol coming into the United States is probably the same as far as checking the cattle. But the reality is those cattle that's coming from southern New Mexico, there's a great possibility, or at least a possibility, of those cattle carrying that screwworm farther north up to our border. And already today, if there's 1.5 million, and I'm probably, what did you say, Johnny, 75% or so, or have an EID tag, roughly?
That was a guess, Joe, but I would assume that there's over 50% have a tag.
The only state I know of in Mexico, I think, that put the tags in, and I think the producers in Mexico that pay for those tags are the state of Chihuahua. I've seen it in Mexican roving cattle. I haven't seen it in Mexican feeder cattle, but in the field, I didn't deal with a lot of.
Well, regardless, I mean, we have limited ability to get Mexico to put electronic IDs in and trace those cattle from Mexico to our border. But we do have the ability to put those tags in as they come into the United States and have either a temporary requirement or a permanent requirement, whatever the industry can stand. But have those cattle traced as they come into the United States, trace them when they go in. So if we do get screwworms in the United States, which is a possibility, God willing we won't, but if we do, then we have the ability to trace those cattle quicker and quarantine and hopefully shut some of this down a little quicker so that we don't disrupt commerce. I don't know what it would take to do that. I don't know what people's thoughts are on it, but that's my opinion.
I didn't, and obviously putting an RFID tag in these cattle coming across would enhance our ability to trace these animals.
If they're wanted as they leave out and where they go.
Yeah, so I mean, the problem is that these animals come over and in one lot, and then the importer will usually cut all of them, divide them up, and then they go up to 10 different directions probably. So I think RFID tags would help facilitate traceability of these animals. What we've heard from USDA is we don't require that in that class of cattle in the United States, so they can't require the cattle imported from Mexico to require those tags. So it is something that we like looked at or something like to eventually be implemented. So I think they do have a pilot project in place at Santa Teresa Board. I don't know where that project stands at this point in time, but I think you could put RFID tags in these cattle that are reinstalled would help tremendously in our trade.
My problem with pilot programs, they're great.
Right.
My problem with education and discussing what to do is great, but that takes time.
You bet. Yes, sir.
And we got cattle that's coming in the United States. So we need to implement it.
Just a point of emphasis a bit. We don't have, to my knowledge, we do not have any screwworm in southern New Mexico. We have it in southern Mexico.
I meant Mexico.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I misspoke.
It's all in southern Mexico.
Yeah, you're correct.
Yeah.
I would, part of the protocol with that USDA has established utilizes not only inspection but treatment at that location. And so right now it states that they have to give those cattle ivermectin. And there's plenty of research data to show that Dormectin is a far superior product in this regard because it has a longer length of time or duration of activity. One of the things that we've already encouraged USDA to get that, they said they couldn't change it because it's not in their code, but I believe that those requirements have kind of been met and they've gotten the right request, but we need them to get that changed to where it says Dormectin, because it has somewhere in the neighborhood of 21 to 28 days duration of effectiveness. So if they get an infestation, within that time period, that drug has proven to be far superior in controlling that infestation. And that, if they're given that within a week of when they come in, then we've got some reasonable level of assurance that we still got effective control once they got here. So that needs to happen because ivermectin is probably 7 to 10 days. So, yeah. The protocol, it's a pretty good protocol.
I have no doubt about that. I just think there'd be a lot. We would be ahead of the game if we could trace those scatter.
I think ivermectin is in the CFR and defined by that and conversations that they could use Dormectin if they were asked or if they were petitioned to use it. So,
They've got to get it in the protocol.
right. Exactly. And then, again, we're relying on the Mexican accredited veterinary to inject them and then the efficacy of the products. Question. My opinion, I would think.
I think Texas needs to keep the pressure on USDA.
We will certainly do that. Any other questions or comments or?
Thank you, Dr. Benji. Do I hear a motion to approve the waivers and variances as presented?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the waiver requesting variance of the presented today.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Is there any discussion or anyone have any questions? Not all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by no. The motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda will be a legislative update from Mr. Juan Flores. Good morning, sir.
Morning, Commissioner. Chairman Locke and fellow commissioners, I just wanted to go ahead and provide you with a brief legislative update on what's going on at the Capitol. I am, like Chairman Locke mentioned, the government relations specialist for the Texas Animal Health Commission. So things are really beginning to pick up over at the Capitol, and we go to the next slide. There we go. Okay, on this first slide, we just kind of wanted to show you some of the activity that's going on in both the Senate and the House. In the Senate, as you can see, we've had last week 1,400 Senate bills that have been filed, 17 concurrent resolutions, 53 joint resolutions, and general resolutions at 127 for a total of 1,597. On the House side, we have 2,865 bills that have 75 concurrent resolutions, 125 and 319 general resolutions for a total of 3,383. So if you put both of those together and add them up, there are 4,980 pieces of legislation that have been filed thus far and last week over at the Capitol, and we're still seeing more bills filed until March the 14th, which is the last day for members to file a bill. So it's been very busy, and of course we do track all these bills and the bills especially to affect the Texas Animal Health Commission. And so on the next slide, I just briefly wanted to mention some of the bills that have been filed that we've been asked by the Legislative Budget Board for a fiscal note. As you know, a fiscal note requires for us to submit an estimated cost of what we think the bill as filed, as introduced, would cost. So the first one that I have here listed, and you can click on the link and take you directly to the bill if you're interested in looking at the bill or reading about the bill. I must warn you though, some of the bills can be pretty lengthy. There is one in here that's about 102 pages long. So, the first one is Senate Bill 97, which is filed by Senator Hall. And that has to do with relating to the assessment, destruction, and release of certain deer. And so basically, what the bill calls for is a requirement that the Texas Animal Health Commission conduct an epidemiological assessment of white-tailed deer that the Parks and Wildlife Department has considered for destruction. The bill will allow the release of breeder deer that receive a non-detected result on antemortem testing that cannot be taken from the white deer tonsil, which might conflict with requirements to potentially call DWD exposed deer and or trace deer. So this bill has not been sent yet for committee. We don't know with any of these bills that they're going to be sent because that's up to the lieutenant governor, the speaker, and the chairman of each respective committee to decide whether or not they would like to bring the bill for a committee hearing. This bill has not been not been referred to any committee as of yet, and we still don't know whether it's going to be. So this is one bill that we are currently tracking. Senate Bill 503. This is the bill that was referred to the Senate Water, Agriculture, and Rural Affairs Committee, and the hearing it was set for yesterday. Dr. Lansford, Technology Director Tom Moore, and one of our attorneys, Penny Manning, and myself were over at the Capitol listening in on the bill. And so this was filed by Senator Perry. And this bill has to do, excuse me, like it said there, relating to the establishment of an electronic registry of livestock marks and brands. There is a companion bill, which means there's an identical bill that was filed in the House by Representative Deanne, and that is House Bill 1417. They're exactly identical. So we did estimate a fiscal note for this bill, and the estimated biennium for this next biennium, the cost for the bill was $3.9 billion. So that is something that, of course, the LBB is looking at. They are trying to do an analysis of that. And of course, the members also take an interest. And so the bill was tabled at the moment because Senator Perry had a family emergency. So it's his bill since he filed it. So we're still waiting to hear what the next steps are going to be with regards to his bill. Basically, it calls for the creation or to update, I should say, the brand registration using an electronic filing system that will be housed here at the Animal Health Commission. And this would, with a digital centralized brand registry, law enforcement will be able to identify stray or stolen livestock quicker, reducing the need to hold animals for extended periods of time, and expedite the return of livestock to the rightful owner. So again, this bill at the moment has been tabled. We're waiting to see if there's going to be a committee substitute or not, which is when members can tweak or amend the bill. And of course, bring it back to committee for further discussion and vote before it's referred to the Senate floor. So that is Senate Bill 503. The next bill on the list is House Bill 1436, which was filed by Representative Mary Gonzalez from El Paso. And this is relating to an animal cruelty public awareness campaign by the Texas Animal Health Commission. So in this bill, it would require the Animal Health Commission to create a website and establish an awareness campaign to prevent animal cruelty, which is not within PAHC jurisdiction, at least not at the moment. This will require assignment of a list task to certain agency employees without expertise in this matter, and would require IT resources to add a web page in our current website, and possibly create a new website that is specifically devoted to this topic.
So this will be kind of new grounds for us if this bill were to go ahead and proceed and become law. Since as you know, we don't deal with dogs or cats or any kind of domestic animals. The agency does not. So this will be something new for the agency. And so again, we're waiting to see if the bill gets referred to a committee or not. And we're also working with Representative Mary Gonzalez's office. We're trying to set up a meeting with her actually tomorrow to see if we could maybe discuss this a little further to see exactly what the legislative intent is in the Portland area. If you go on to the next slide, this will be House Bill 1592. This was filed by Representative Plessa, and this is in regards to, like the slide says, an alert system for dangerous plant and wildlife pests and diseases administered by Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. So this will create this bill, if passed, will create an internet alert system in partnership with the Department of Agriculture and Parks and Wildlife Department, who would issue statewide notifications for wildlife and plant pests, diseases, and quarantine. So again, this is something that we probably will be meeting with the members to discuss a little bit further, since we would need to have a discussion as to which type of diseases and so forth would need to be reported, and about the issue involving quarantine if necessary, and who will be notifying AgriLife. Would that be THC, would be Parks and Wildlife, or would that be Department of Agriculture? So again, this is another bill that still has not been referred, and so we're still waiting to hear, but that gives us time to be able to meet with the members to discuss. Next, we have Senate Bill 2439 by Representative Curry. This is relating to the abolishment of the Animal Health Commission and the transfer of its functions to the Department of Agriculture. So, plain language, it would mean that the Texas Animal Health Commission, if the bill were to pass and be codified, become law, would cease to exist. And all of our issues and so forth would then transfer to the jurisdiction of the Texas Department. So again, this bill has not been referred to any committee. We're still waiting to figure out or to determine if and when it does. And of course, we need to meet with the members to discuss the legislative bill and to see exactly what the bill would call for and so forth. So we're still waiting to hear regarding this bill as well. The next slide, we have Representative House Bill 2482, again filed by Representative Curry. In this bill, this is relating to a prohibition on CWD containment zones and surveillance zones established by the Parks and Wildlife Commission or the Parks and Wildlife Department. So the bill directly addresses Parks and Wildlife Department. But of course, as we're also involved with, currently involved with CWD with Parks and Wildlife, we are still trying to determine how that would impact our agency and what it would call for our agency to have to work on. In this bill, again, it would designate or maintain, or Texas Parks and Wildlife may not designate or maintain a designation for a geographic area as a chronic waste and disease containment zone or surveillance zone. And again, so we're still trying to do some further analysis on this through our legal department, our legal team. And again, the bill has not been set for any committee. And as you noted, there's a pattern here. All the House bills have not been set because the House last week, or a week and a half ago, finally was able to assign all of its members to different committees. And so they're still holding or beginning to hold their organizational meetings before they start hearing bills in committee. So Agriculture and livestock will be one of the committees, and that is the committee that we report to. And so chances are that probably sometime next week, they will have their organizational meeting. The chair is Representative Deanne. And Dr. Dinges and Dr. Lancer will go down to the Capitol, will accompany them, and they will provide an overview of the agency and let them know about our mission and exactly what our agency does, and not just. So that's just some additional information. And the last bill I was going to cover was House Bill 2992 by Representative Tepper. And again, this bill has not been referred to a committee as of yet, and this is relating to the name and function of the Rural Veterinary Incentive Program. As you know, the RVIT program was using ARPA funds, but the time for us to be able to utilize those ARPA funds is now over. So if this bill passes, we would need to ask for additional resources or additional funding if a member desire to go ahead and extend the RVIP program, which in this case would also include now dogs and cats. So that's what the bill calls for. So again, not referred to committee as of yet, and our legal team is still looking into how that would affect our agency. The Senate, by the way, has started hearing and having committee hearings, as I mentioned. So they're already, as you know, discussing the public health voucher bills and other bills. And so the House, we're still waiting on for them to set the bills. Finally, just some dates of interest. On February the 10th, TAC leadership presented an overview of the agency to the Senate Water, Agriculture, and Rural Affairs Committee. February the 11th, TAC leadership presented the agency's exceptional items request before the Senate Finance Committee. This coming Thursday, our leadership will be presenting the agency's exceptional items request before the House Appropriations Committee. And finally, on March the 14th, we have a deadline for the unrestricted filing of bills and joint resolution other than local bills, emergency appropriations, and emergency matter bills submitted by the governor's office. So those are dates. You can also view any of these hearings on the Senate or House website if you're interested. And you'll get a chance to read Dr. Dinges and Dr. Lancer present the agency's exceptional items, basically our legislative appropriations request as well, before the House Appropriations Committee. And that includes my presentation. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions of what? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Our next report will be a report on field animal health programs and disease traceability activities. Dr. T.R. Lancer. Morning, sir.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Pleasure as always to get to share a few things with you. Try to keep technology rolling. Maybe anyway, launching into the report here, I wanted to just say a few things related to animal disease traceability. The last commission meeting, the new federal rule requiring visually and electronically readable RFID tags for cattle and bison interstate movement was a week into implementation, and there had been some hiccups in certain states in the Midwest, especially. Reported at that point that we had not seen any issues with implementation of this review, and that continues to be the case today. And certainly want to thank our stakeholders and industry groups for rapidly implementing and moving towards that, meeting the requirements of that federal rule, and everything seems to be going along well. So just to look at this slide here and a few numbers talking about sheep and goat scrapie IDs and flock identifiers. You can see from the quarter in July to September versus October to December of last year that our number of scrapie flock IDs went down, but there's still steady demand, and certainly want to again thank our stakeholders who are cooperating with us to get that information out to the producers about the requirements related to the sheep and goat ID. Also in this slide, you can see that some information about our RFID tag distribution. Certainly, you know, this last quarter included the implementation date of November the 5th, so there was a blip up, so to speak, in the distribution of tags, but certainly our veterinarians have accredited and authorized veterinarians have been reaching out, requesting a large number of tags, as have producers. And so you can see there that we distributed 172, almost 173,000 tags last quarter, bringing our total up to almost 1.7 million tags. One other comment about that is that we still have a very large inventory of those tags. We're still on course to receive our allotment of tags from USDA for FY24 with changes in the budget or the federal system and continuing resolution, all those things. We don't know exactly what our allotment's going to look like for the coming year, but everybody is telling us to assume it's going to be very similar to what it was last year. So we will see what that looks like. Take home message there is we have lots of tags and we are actively sending those out. We're glad to help any producers or veterinarians out that are looking for those tags and get them set up. So this slide, just to talk about a few things related to stakeholder outreach activities by our ADT staff. Matt Kabala continues to work with accredited and authorized veterinarians to get electronic tag readers into their hands. This map kind of shows that distribution of where he's been and all the clinics and veterinarians he's worked with to date. We've gotten 230 of those devices into the hands of the accredited veterinarians. We've hit kind of a stall period because we're waiting on another round of those to come in. As soon as those come in, he's already got quite a list of veterinarians to go visit and get some more out into their hands. So that distribution effort is certainly ongoing and seems to be strong, have a strong demand. So we're excited to continue to be able to service that demand. So our ADT staff and Regions field staff continue to participate in events, share information about the rule, about animal disease or animal ID requirements, and to distribute the RFID tags. And Aaron and Communications has been working with getting set up for upcoming events in the coming year, things like the PSERA convention to get set up to continue those efforts. Want to also recognize the efforts that Texas Authorized Personnel Program, REX, and Aaron and Communications have continued to assist in this process of getting the word out on ADT and animal ID through email blasts to accredited and authorized veterinarians. Also updated our website, the ADT portion of our website, some additional resources and information. And Aaron is doing a great job working with IT, not only on that, but with getting some social media campaigns out related to this topic. A few other things related to outreach for ADT as we continue to work with veterinarians and markets related to the use of the use tag metal clips. So for in-state movements, that is still an official ID. We continue to work with the accredited veterinarians and markets that are utilizing those as long as those supply those tags available. So I don't know how long that will be, but we've got quite an inventory of those and we'll continue to encourage the use of the no-cost RFIDs, but there are certainly cases where the metal clips for in-state movements are acceptable and we can certainly walk through those. Last thing I want to mention on outreach and other activities is we met with AgriLife Extension folks, the state validation crew, to discuss formalizing and get agreements and protocols in place for use of official ID, which they have been doing for a number of years, but to get those formalized and on paper. So that serves us to, one, be able to know exactly what the protocol is. It gives them support and us support and exhibitors, especially the ones that are going out of state, about exactly what that program is and how that works in terms of tag removal, replacements, and things like that. The other thing that it does is it will give us a good solid basis for developing some outreach materials to share through Extension and Texas FFA to provide those exhibitors with what those requirements are and what the list of speed. So that's ongoing and we're Right. That done before the validation season starts with cattle your first part of June. Lastly, Matt Kabala, Dr. Dingus, and I had the opportunity to go to the U.S. Cattle Trace meeting and exercise. Commissioner Leathers was there as well. That was another excellent exercise related to ID or animal ID and ADT related to a disease outbreak. As with all of those exercises, it's valuable because we get to sit down with other people across the country and talk about what is that impact going to be and how do we decrease that impact and learn some things there to support planning efforts moving forward. So that was a very fruitful and productive meeting. Moving into animal health programs, just a couple of things related to staffing updates. We still have a couple of vacant region director positions in Amarillo and Beeville, and we're working as part of our exceptional items to increase those salaries and continue to be able to try to attract and retain those positions. I want to thank Dr. Leindecker and Dr. Munger, who are serving in Beeville and Amarillo respectively as interim directors, and they're taking on those extra duties to serve those inspectors out there and those offices. In terms of field staff, our applicant pools continue to be very, very big, and that's a great thing. We have a lot of interest in our positions, and we haven't had any significant hiring issues for any of those positions for a good while now. So just a side note, agency-wide, Dr. Ben just mentioned that we're at 201.5 at our 224.5 FTE allotment, which I just wanted to throw in there that agency turnover has decreased from 34% in 2021 to 18.4% in FY24, and as the first quarter of this year is less than 5%. So that's a trend that's ongoing. It's certainly something that we're very pleased to announce, and hopefully that's a trend that will continue. We work on building our agency and restoring some institutional knowledge, which just takes time. So some field activities that aren't in your report, but just wanted to touch on related to animal health activities. Dr. Bowl continues to do an excellent job coordinating with the region managements and region offices to increase responsiveness and efficiencies related to disease situations. Can't say enough about the progress that's being made by all of the regions and region offices in terms of, especially those with new directors and managers, in terms of moving forward and advancing the efficiencies in response to these situations. And certainly we've come a long way as we realign and restructure those regions to get the region director positions back in and work through that transition. So very proud of what all of them have done to get that accomplished. Most of the regions have also conducted successful winter meetings, and with the exception of one next week in Sulphur Springs, we had the opportunity, Dr. Dingus and I and Dr. Bowles, to spend time in each one of those meetings, share some agency updates, and interact with the inspector and the field staff, and that's a very important thing in our opinion to be able to do that. We also conducted at those meetings some new screwworm training and some additional livestock shipment inspection compliance training at those meetings as well. We've had a good turnout in participation in the live bird market system training that was held last week in San Antonio. We had 2 region directors of field vet, Donna Mahawkey, our training officer, Dr. Bowl was there, Holly T.B. Hale from emergency management was there, and Dr. Dingus and I were there for a little while the first day, and Dr. Dingus did an outstanding job updating that national group and providing some information about the live bird market system in Texas. So something that a little bit different for this report is the inclusion of these numbers here. My apologies for the size of that. It's hard to see, but I just wanted to provide you all some perspective. I know everybody has some idea and appreciation for the volume of livestock that move in and out of our state every year. I asked Program Records to kind of put this together to just kind of give us something on paper to demonstrate that volume. And so this slide includes livestock imports by class of livestock over the last couple of years as an average. And the next slide is Thank you, Amanda. Shows the excellence. And so the reason I wanted to mention that is because that's something that's come up since I've been back for sure. So during the HPAI pieces, what does the Texas livestock industry mean to the nation? And certainly in terms of the dairy component, the Texas Panhandle is very critical to the national dairy industry, and demonstrating the volume of animal movements that occur in and out of our state is something that I think all of us having in our back pocket being able to demonstrate is a good piece of information. The other thing that I want to highlight related to this is that each one of these different categories and movements represents about 12,000 movement documents to be processed every month on average. And Program Records is doing an excellent job getting those processed. We still lag behind some, but we are much further down the road. I want to thank that department for all their hard work in working on that. Which the other piece of this I want to keep bringing up is that some of the challenges with processing that many documents remains the handwritten certificates of veterinary inspection. Something that, as I've mentioned over the last year being back, that we need to continue to keep in our minds. We watch other states go to completely electronic certificates of veterinary inspection requirements, both for import and export, to be thinking about what that means for us and potentially moving forward with similar movement. So that's just want to keep that on everybody's minds. So, moving into emergency management. Our emergency management staff has certainly been active and busy and continuing to attend training or conduct training and participate in preparedness activities. Just to highlight a couple of things here, we had staff that had the opportunity to participate in the Kansas Department of Agriculture's annual foot and mouth disease functional exercise. This one was good. We had Holly and Sarah up there, and this one was a good one because it did tackle some of the product movement related to dairy products. So particularly all of these dairies are impacted. So we always learn things from those functional exercises, and it continues to add to our planning activities and preparedness activities to make it, hopefully we can have as little impact on business as possible if we ever have to. We continue to work with IAD with some feedlot exercise planning activities, and we'll keep you posted on those as those develop. Wanted to also highlight, though, that we are in conjunction with our GIS mapper and the epidemiology department have revamped our animal issues committee database, or matrix that we call it, and that has some nifty features associated with the dashboard now. That's used by the field inspectors as they make contacts in the local and in the counties to update information about who the contacts are, do they have sheltering capabilities, and things like that. So certainly appreciate all the collaboration and work on that. That was another thing that livestock inspectors have been trained on. Last thing on that training and preparedness, through discussion with to follow along with Dr. Ninjas, and through discussion with our EM department, we have reprioritized and made numerous through-work planning and preparedness activities already, and certainly the staff has responded to that very well, and we are working very diligently to follow up and try to get to the point where, if we have to deal with this, we're further down the road. We're very fortunate in this state. I guess we would call it fortunate. We're fortunate in this state among all other states, in that we have a staff that is well versed in dealing with an ectoparasite pest. And so that puts us a leg up on several things. We've been doing cattle fever tick workers. There's some things there that certainly lend itself to universal school response, and we're trying to capitalize on those pieces moving forward. So related to response activities, our incident management team members had the opportunity to respond to a backyard HPAI block in Brazoria County. While it's not required that we do all of the response, we continue to, in backyard instances, we continue to do that in an effort to build capability and capacity to respond to commercial facilities when we have outbreaks there. So we also had a couple of activations with the SOC for winter weather. So related to outreach and engagement, I didn't write the slide change down. We have had the opportunity to participate in a number of meetings and activities there. Want to highlight that second bullet as something that's really important and appreciate that our staff, including Dawn Mahawkey and our emergency management staff, is working very diligently with the poultry industry to continue the discussions and preparedness for high pathogen influenza outbreaks in the industry. So we had the opportunity to meet with one of the companies and be a part of their preparedness discussion, which was great because it gave us an idea of what they were thinking, and it gave them an idea of the regulatory side, what would be entailed after respond there. So we've also participated in some other tabletop exercises related to HPAI, and we're continuing to engage with other national agricultural groups, preparedness groups in terms of preparedness activities. Secure food supply, we continue to engage with livestock markets and this national secure food supply work group to continue moving that forward. That is another one of our exceptional items, is get some additional positions, FTEs, and funding for those positions to increase our capacity and capability in that part, as that is very important. Any preparedness activities related to continuity of operations in the event we have to respond to catastrophic. Related to upcoming events, go ahead. We are continuing to follow up on our internal growth program working group, and plan to have some workshops and training activities associated with that as we move forward, to make sure that our response partners are up to speed on what our thoughts are. Certainly our staff is up to speed on what their thought is on how that's going to roll out, and certainly we will endeavor to keep industry informed of that and involve them into the appropriate places to make sure they understand what that's going to look like and capture any input that they have for those processes. So the last thing, and it is related to an update on. One more slide. No, okay. So the last thing is an update on emergency support function 11, which is one of the overarching state response mechanisms. The Texas Animal Health Commission has been the lead agency for that PSF 11, which is Natural Resources and Ag, for about 20 years. And that wasn't mandated by TDM, it was requested by TDM many years ago for the Animal Health Commission to take on that role. Recently, TDM made us aware that AgriLife Extension is going to be assuming that role, and it has largely in part due to their increased capacity and increasing capacity related to activities in emergency management. And so we're very, very proud of the work that Animal Health Commission has done over the 20 years to build the capabilities and capacity for that emergency support function, and certainly the things that we have done, especially in service to our stakeholders and citizens in response to natural disasters such as wildfires, hurricanes, floods, tornadoes, and winter storms. We as the executive team continue to evaluate exactly what that means. Have some more discussion. We understand that there will be some more discussion with TDM related to this, but we continue to evaluate exactly what this role change means. And rest assured, we will continue to diligently serve our livestock industry stakeholders in times of response, and our local response partners as well during those times of response, to make sure that the animal issues are addressed. And we continue to reiterate with TDM our statutory requirements and roles related to these response. So we continue to keep you updated with where that goes, but as Dr. Gold was prone to say, this is also an opportunity to redirect fire and take on some projects that closely align with our mission of protecting him. With that, I think that's everything I've got. I appreciate the time and attention, and certainly glad to try to answer any questions you may have. Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I think Dr. Digis and Dr. Lansford need two attaboys for the big increase in our turnover rate of our employees. I think they've done a great job. It's like they're really bringing the team together. This is the best report that we've had on that since I've seen this. Good on this. So looks like good job. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it's definitely a team effort. We've got an outstanding team put together and certainly it takes a whole to make it happen. Headed in a positive direction for sure.
Just, correct me if I'm wrong in my thinking, when you talk about the metal nose tags, they're gonna use them until they're used up. But let's just take, for instance, if you put that last metal tag into a heifer, it's gonna be what, 12, 15 years roughly before those tags play out? I mean, as far as the official ID.
Yes, sir. I couldn't put a number on that. And
Yeah.
so what we're doing related to heifers and official capsid vaccination is we're encouraging veterinarians because there's no cost to those RFID tags
Right.
to utilize those. But if it's a set of heifers that are not going to be moving or there's no planned or intended movement out of state, the metal clips are still, for us, recognized as official ID. And I know that caused a little bit of consternation with USDA, but part of the issue is related to that is over the years we've received, I can't even begin to probably put a number on that. Somebody could probably give me a number, but those metal clip tags, lots and lots of them. And they are in veterinary clinics. They're still scattered out with producers, not the orange vaccination tags, but just silver ID tags. They're scattered out at sale barns. And for us to try to go back and find those like some of the other states have, there's no way. So to your point, yes, it'll be a number of years before that happens, but it is a finite. At some point, they'll be gone. And
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I was thinking. of that.
yes, sir.
More acute problem to that is we're having a hard time getting the vaccine.
Right. Yeah, we are too. I mean, through our veterinary office.
Okay, a couple of observations, things that you said. Go back to US cattle trades, please.
Yes, sir.
I think our Commissioner Others is chairman of that organization, president this time.
Yeah, for a year.
We think that's great. To have our guy in that deal. The next thing, you mentioned that you all have met with the 4-H and FFA people about tagging, and I was approached probably 2 years ago by a very concerned person that knew that a lot of those shows, they were just taking out the official tag, which they were prohibited from doing, and replacing it with their own ID. And so y'all have addressed that evidently.
Yes, sir. So that, in response to a number of stakeholder inquiries related to heifers primarily,
Right.
and then sheep and goats, exhibitors and breeders concerned about removal of those official IDs. So and I guess it's been a number of years, maybe 5 years, 4 years. I don't remember exactly when validation went to, Texas validation went to 840 RFIDs. When they did that, they were then applying official ID. Prior to that, they were, in many instances, were removing official ID, 840 tags, or even metal clips sometimes, to put in a non-official tag, a 900 series, I think it was 920, whatever it was. But they have, Texas validation is now using 840 series, which is the official ID. So we're just working through the process with them to make sure that if they're replacing tags, we're capturing all that information. If they're not replacing tags, tying all that together, just trying to clean that up so everybody's on the same page with keeping that traceability information.
My last thing I want to bring up, but I've heard several times today, how much better this world would be if we had electronic health papers. And I would encourage our agency to do everything we can to move totally to that if we ever could. Hey, why make it hard?
It would make many things in our world simpler. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna mess with our agenda items here a little bit and move item 13 up. We have a report from Commissioner Leathers, and he's gonna have to leave before too long, so if you don't mind, we'll bring you up here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Texas Animal Health Committee Audit Subcommittee met this morning. After approval of the November 12, 2024 minutes, Mr. Monty Rufus reviewed the internal audit results. And the results were that the Texas Animal Health Commission complied with all areas, including having good internal controls. There was one finding: the agency does not have a designated information security officer. At the present, that is being covered by the IT manager, and internal audit felt like it'd be better to have a separate person for that. The internal audit charter was reviewed, and both the internal audit and the internal audit charter were approved. The meeting was adjourned at 8:20.
Okay? And, so we do need to approve that report. So do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the audit subcommittee report as discussed.
Okay? We have a motion and a second to approve the audit report. Any further questions? All in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all for serving on that. I know it's a big job and you got to get up early to get over here to do it, but thank you all for serving on the audit committee, because y'all provide real service. But
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you for moving that up.
We're going to back up now to item 10, presentation of authorized personnel program activities. Rex Wyatt.
Good morning, Chairman Locke, Commissioners. Always tough to follow Dr. Lansford, but I will do my best up here. So in January 2024, I presented to the Commission and discussed, sorry, let me back up a little bit. So my name is Rex Wyatt. I manage the Texas Authorized Personnel Program. So early last year, I came to the Commission and discussed a little bit about the programs and things we do, and laid out a couple of objectives for the 2024 calendar year that I was hoping to accomplish. So I'm back here again to present today and discuss some things we're up to, some activities and trainings we're doing, discuss some successes from last year, and discuss a little bit of our objectives laid out for the 2025 year. So just to give a quick refresher for anyone that's not totally familiar, or any commissioners that weren't here last year, although Dr. Sturgis, Commissioner Sturgis, I know you're familiar with the program, being an authorized veterinarian in Texas. So the TAP program, we call it TAP program for short, the Authorized Personnel Program, is a state-specific authorization program here in the state that basically any veterinarians in Texas who perform any regulatory livestock or equine work or exotic work in Texas are enrolled in this program. So these are veterinarians who are licensed by the state of Texas, accredited by the USDA in a Category 2 capacity, and then if they're doing large animal work in Texas, they will be enrolled in this program as well. So just kind of a main purpose of this program, at least in a general sense, is due to the abundant number of livestock animals we have in Texas, as we all know, and the high number of veterinarians we have in the state. This program lets us know who's practicing in the state, know where they're practicing, allows us to train veterinarians and service these programs, as well as just the nature of Texas being such a prominent food supplier for the rest of the country, particularly in beef production. This program lets us know who's working with our food animals and helps us keep our food supply as safe and secure as possible. So we'll go ahead and jump into it here. You can see here's some numbers on our authorized personnel program right now. This is our last 5 years worth of data. If you look at you can see the numbers have stayed relatively consistent over the past 5 years, which is what we expect. If you look in the total column there, you can see we've got just over 2,400 currently authorized veterinarians in the state. Just a quick side note, Texas has the second highest number of accredited veterinarians in the country. Last time I looked, we had about 6,800 accredited veterinarians in Texas. So we're very proud of that. We have a massive Texas veterinary workforce here. So if you go down to this two middle rows there, you can see we've got, I'll actually discuss these two disease programs here in just a moment, but you can see we've got 921 veterinarians who are currently certified in bovine trichomoniasis testing, about 245 that are certified in CWD live animal testing, And then if you go to the bottom there, you can see we've got close to 800 folks who are certified in CWD postmortem sample collection. These are lay people that we train, they're not veterinarians, but I also manage the certification, so I'm going to go ahead and include those in there. So like I said, the veterinary numbers are remain pretty consistent, which is what we anticipate that trend to continue. We may see a possible increase in our authorized veterinary numbers as Tech is set to graduate their very first veterinary class this spring. So we will keep an eye on that. Hopefully we'll get some more veterinarians over the next couple of years. So those two disease programs I just mentioned. So because trichomoniasis and CWD are state programs, our agency is responsible for training veterinarians in these procedures. So we do a bovine trichomoniasis training 1 time per month. It's a 5-year certification. We do a CWD training every other month, and that's a 3-year certification. We do both of these virtually right now. It's been working out very well. It makes things a lot easier on our agency veterinarians, our staff veterinarians, as well as private practitioners around the state, not having to travel great distances. We can kind of set these up with that time that works for most people. If there are questions that come up from private practitioners about some supplemental hands-on training or some more help with some things, our region directors and agency veterinarians are great about reaching out directly to these authorized vets and setting up a time they can stop by the clinic or the vet can stop by a region office and things like that. So our region directors and field veterinarians are the ones who present these trainings. When we're doing those trainings, they'll relay things like any positive cases that have come up recently, any changes to program procedures and requirements, any changes from the laboratory in terms of sending samples and paperwork to the lab. So by the nature of them doing that training and maintaining PowerPoints and keeping everything updated, that also serves as their kind of training themselves, our staff veterinarians, for them to stay up to date as well. Veterinarians who attend these trainings do receive continuing education credit from the agency. We work on applications from the Texas Veterinary Board to be able to award continuing education for vets that attend these trainings. And then if you look at the bottom there, I just wanted to include the Cervid TB training. So that is a federal program run by the USDA. That's not a state or an agency program. But I wanted to include it because our THC agency veterinarians do on occasion help with those trainings when possible. Those are set up in person on an individual basis. And our staff veterinarians will go out to clinics and help train those, and then I'll let the USDA know that that veterinarian is certified, and they'll maintain that certification for the veterinarian. And getting in here, as Dr. Den just mentioned, I'll give an update on the veterinary medicine loan repayment program. So the VMLRP program is a USDA NEPA program, the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. I undertook this program full time this year. I've been spending a lot of time on it and trying to do a lot of work on it so we can help some clinics in rural areas and some veterinarians coming out of veterinary school. So I'll discuss a little bit more details about the program in just a second, but essentially what this program is a student loan debt relief program for any veterinarians who agree to serve at least 3 years in one of the veterinary shortage areas of the state. So veterinarians, if they go through this program and serve the 3 years, they can receive up to $40,000 a year in student loan debt relief, as well as some tax liability money. So a veterinarian that goes through the full 3 years of this program, over the course of that 3 years, they can have up to $167,000 knocked off their student loan debt. So it's a very good program, and essentially it's a very complex program. There's multiple parts to it. So it's a federal program, but the states each administer the program in their state how they see fit. So each state has an animal health office. In Texas, obviously, that's the Animal Health Commission. And so we are responsible for nominating which areas of the state are veterinary shortages. So each state has a different process for that. I'm still working on getting ours set up, but for this cycle, I worked very closely with a lot of our authorized veterinarians in the state, a lot of clinics around the state, phone calls, a lot of emailing, and discussing with these vets what areas are having the most dire shortages right now. So we were allotted up to 8 veterinary shortage areas this cycle, and we submitted applications for all 8 positions. The USDA reviews those, and they can either accept or decline those nomination areas. And very proud to say that all 8 were awarded to us this year. So we're very excited about that, very proud of that. And for this cycle specifically, I wanted to go ahead and walk through kind of what the thought process was here. So talking to a lot of vets around the state, seeing where needs are most pressing right now, I wanted to focus first on the Texas-Mexico border. this area of the state. It's already just very important to have veterinary services along the international borders. Mitigates the risk of disease spread across international border. There's a lot of ports in South Texas, a lot of animals that come in and out of here, especially cattle. So it's important vet services are down there to inspect these animals. We also, this region of the state also already has the lowest number of authorized veterinarians in the state. So we're already trying to incentivize more vets to go practice down there. So far we have Webb, Starr, DePot, Jim Hogg, and Duval counties that are nominated. And this decision to nominate this area turned out to be decently prudent, in my opinion at least, because after we nominated this area in late 2024, we got the detection of New World screwworm in southern Mexico. So hopefully incentivizing more vets to go down to that area will help with animal inspections for Mexican cattle crossing the border. Also want to go ahead and focus on the West Texas area and the Panhandle. I'm actually from this area. I'm very familiar with it. I've talked to a lot of clinics in these areas, and I know it's hard for recruitment and retention of these food animal veterinarians has become difficult out there. So we've got 30 counties designated in total in those areas. Hoping to have some more vets to go out there and start working. Also, the single county up in the Panhandle, that's Potter County, has a public service position that Texas Tech has. I worked with them to set that position up. So Texas Tech has a position that they can fill using this program for a public service position. So I know that's a lot of information, but I just wanted to get some of that to you so you have some general knowledge on it. Be glad to answer questions after the meeting or presentation. But just to sum it all up as a recap, 7 of these positions will be for private rural clinics to get some help recruiting veterinarians and for new veterinarians to get some debt relief. 1 position is a public service position, like I said. And the last thing to note on that, I guess 2 things to note. This doesn't just help the rural clinics in these areas, food animal clinics and the veterinarians. This program really helps the community, small towns, communities, producers raising animals that have to travel hundreds of miles for veterinary care, things like that. And then the last piece I just wanted to mention is due to the current federal funding freeze, this program is technically currently paused, but we are hopeful and expecting it to kick back up and not too far from now. So we'll have people ready to submit applications when that gets back up and running. So as I mentioned, I presented early last year on the program, and at the end of my presentation, I laid out a couple of key objectives that I was hoping to accomplish throughout 2024. So I just wanted to give a couple quick updates on those objectives. So the first of those was veterinarian outreach. So throughout last year, I worked closely with Aaron and the communications department to distribute veterinary newsletters, press releases, all concerning animal health. I attended a lot of veterinary conferences. I visited a lot of clinics around the state. But importantly, I think I was able to travel up to Amarillo and meet a lot of veterinary students at Texas Tech in their 3rd and 4th year right now. I've been able to help assist them with a lot of stuff. Veterinarians coming out of school, students have a lot of paperwork they have to do, and been able to direct them a lot, even when it's not agency functions. If it's USDA accreditation, anything like that, I've been able to help them. And when they get into practice, look into it. Where do you order health forms? Where do you order supplies? Things like that. I've been able to help them a lot. So second thing there was successful spring regulatory course at Texas Tech School of Veterinary Medicine. So every the class that goes for their 3rd year, they have a class that prepares them kind of to join the Texas workforce, and they get a lot of USDA information and Animal Health Commission information. So I was able to go out there and meet a lot of them. Since it was their first class, I wanted to make sure that Texas Tech felt support from the agency and let them know that we would help them get into the workforce. So that was very successful. We're having another spring class going on right now. We'll be going up there in April to help with the laboratory portion of that class. The last piece was compliance. I was the only person in this department for about 2.5 years, and it was getting to be a lot to manage all the things that come along with this program, all it requires. So I worked with the legal department and the HR department to consolidate all of my compliance duties that I was overseeing, and we decided to find someone that could focus on those duties because it really requires a lot of attention. So with Danielle Kovac, she's now serving in the authorized personnel department as a compliance analyst. She actually came over from the program records department, so she's already very familiar with the program and everything that goes on. So she's going to be focusing on official veterinary documents. So I'll discuss that here in a second, but she's going to be working very closely with veterinarians, producers, the Texas A&M laboratory, stock shows, the epidemiology department, to look at veterinary documents, specifically health certificates, test records for samples that go to the laboratory. Our livestock veterinarians in the state do a lot of good work. They're amazing people, and we don't want to make their life any harder than it is. So I think it's important to emphasize that we're not looking at compliance just for the sake of more oversight of these veterinarians. There's just some important things that need to be done correctly because it makes everyone's job a little bit easier. So when samples go to the laboratory to get official tests, there's paperwork that goes along with it. And when those paperwork's not filled out correctly, it makes the job really hard for the laboratory technicians to run those tests officially. It makes the job hard for the epidemiology department to do disease traceability. The same thing for interstate health certificates. If those documents aren't filled out correctly, if we don't have what animals are on there, what dates they moved into the state, we don't know what animals are coming in and out of the state, and it makes the job hard for disease traceability purposes. So her coming on has been a huge help. So I just wanted to give a quick update on these objectives. And it was a successful year for the department, and there's always room to improve, which we're working on right now. And I'm proud that we're able to accomplish some of these goals. That leads me into this year, the 2025 calendar year. First big thing we're trying to focus on right now is helping Texas Tech. Their very first veterinary class is graduating this spring. And like I said, there's a lot of paperwork they have to get bogged down in. So I'm just trying to help make sure that they can jump right into the workforce and start practicing and not have to worry about waiting for paperwork to get pushed through and all that. I'll be going up in April to help with a lab, like I said, and I'll be presenting to the third-year students on the BMLRP program and some other things that they can do to help with their student loans. The second thing, recruitment and retention of food animal veterinarians. Like I said, that's going to be primarily through this BMLRP program. I've noticed a bit of a disparity in our authorized veterinarians. Many of them are reaching retirement age or have already past retirement age. A lot of new students that are coming out of school, a lot of them are going to corporate practices, places where pay might be a little higher, hours might be a little bit less. And so it's important that we get veterinarians going into these rural areas and food animal clinics, because historically these clinics relied on finding younger veterinarians, next generation to pass their businesses off to. So just trying to incentivize more vets to go out to the rural areas and start practicing. And then the last piece, continued improvements on compliance. Like I said, there's still some issues with some documents that are being processed by the agency, so we're working on those all the time. And again, not just for the sake of oversight of veterinarians, but just to make the job easier for the epidemiology department and the laboratory. So I believe that's just about concludes the presentation here. And so I just want to thank you for letting me come to discuss the program. Very passionate about it. Spent a lot of time working on it. So if you have any answer any questions, if there are any at this time.
Anybody have any questions?
I commend you on your efforts to select the shortage areas properly. I've sat on the committees that make these selections, and many states don't do a very good job of that. Like the awards given to folks they've got like 1,000 goats in their area, and that's all they're dealing with. When we're dealing with shortage areas that have multiples of hundreds of thousands head of livestock poultry, whatever. So I appreciate at least Texas taking that seriously.
Well, this is just the first step. I appreciate your comments. This is just the first step. There was no infrastructure in place when I started it. I heard that there was committees in the past, but we weren't really utilizing much lately. So I've actually started discussing with other states their process. Oklahoma has a good process. So we're going to start setting up committees and we can start working on this and invite people like you to come get some input.
Thank you very much, Rex.
Thanks, sir.
And at this point, let's let the record reflect, please, that Commissioner Leathers left immediately following his report. Next is Dr. Jesse White. I'm looking at two things here. Dr. Jesse Bundy with a presentation on disease and epidemiology activities. That's a tongue twister.
I can say it 3 times fast. All right, thank y'all so much for having me up here today. I always enjoy and have fun on these days. To jump right in at my normal feet, high path AI and livestock. So this is the avian influenza that we're dealing with that specifically crossover into dairy cattle. All the ones we've dealt with in Texas have been the B313 case that as it started off. So the additional 2 crossover events USDA is talking about, we have not detected that in Texas at this time. So completely, we've had 27 cases since we knew it was influenza until now for the entire outbreak, compared to the 972 nationwide. In the last 30 days, which is the time period they're monitoring this, we've had 0 cases. And so I think that's a good job. We'll definitely respond to anything we detect with the saddle program. So jumping into our actual program diseases for the first quarter of 2025, tuberculosis, they have 7 herds under assurance testing. So we got our last verification herd switched over to assurance testing, and so we're working through those. And we continue to close more trace investigations. So in the last 2 quarters, we've gotten that down from 47 to 16 with a special working group that Dr. Bowl is helping to support with one of my field epidemiologists out of one of our regions. So they're making great progress with that and with one of Dr. Collins' USDA epi. For our cattle brucellosis program, in the last quarter, we had 2 suspect cases that we responded to. They both tested out. There wasn't any big traces associated with that, but our testing numbers stayed about the same. So the surveillance that we're doing for this disease is staying pretty adequate, and we're continuing to get proof that it's working. We're finding things that are suspect enough to go and do investigations and follow up with. This suspicion that all of these are associated with brucellosis, my bias remains the same based on what we're continuing to find. With trichomoniasis or bovine trick, our testing numbers stay pretty the same, not for the last quarter, but for September to November the year before. Those trick tests tend to go in cycles. And so 1.53, I know that looks like a large number. That is just a quarter. And so just remember, we have more tests, a certain population tested during this time. And so the next quarter, you'll see it'll trend up and down like it normally does. And so I suspect what we're dealing with over an annual basis is the same. I don't see any trends outside of that. Our cattle fever tick, just like I teached y'all last time, we have 0 open traces. So very happy about that. We worked very well, not me, Dr. Bowles' team and one of my field epis worked really hard to get all those down, get those traced out, and get that risk mitigated throughout from the traces back from 2023 with what we were waiting on. Testing for cattle fever ticks. So just to support what Dr. Denji was saying, we have people that identify these in the field, and every single tick is verified at the federal lab. And so for them to be dermatitis, amblyoma, not cattle fever tick, that is something that they do in the field. They're trained to do it, but then somebody else at the parasitologist backs it up over a period of time. So we can have that confidence without that time gap. That would be super helpful if we're dealing with high numbers of ectoparasite cases or a specific ectoparasite that moves very quickly because it has wings. But we did about the same number for this time period. They're actually doing more efforts to collect ticks off of harvest animals, exotic harvest animals. And so we're really good to see the spread across the different species that these ticks come off of for the surveillance. And those guys down in South Texas work really hard to get these and maintain that surveillance so we can have some of that confidence that we know where the ticks are in Texas, and we're continuing to put that southern pressure on to get them back, all of the cases back into the permanent quarantine zone. For horses, this is the quarter that stopped right before November is where the outbreak that everybody knows about started. And so you'll see the next quarter report's going to have that epidemiologic bump in cases for the outbreak. And so for the quarter 1, we had 40 EIA cases, 1 TEQI that was age-full infected, both double dipping disease course, so 1 horseshoe diseases, so 39 cases. And that was the spread of it. For our EIA cases across the state, there's a lot of driving and work on these to trace them down. Harris County had a large barn. There were a couple other large barns, but Harris County had a large positive barn. And so appropriate work to hunt those down and get those addressed and stop that animal movement. For avian, we had 0 cases of poultry, influenza A virus in quarter 1, and 2 cases of viral T, both of them responded to, and in the normal places. In the places we see them, we have cases. So we continue to have that surveillance testing in place, significantly within the live bird market, the surveillance. And then we have a place that submits not live bird market samples routinely to PBMGL. And then Cholera Typhoid, the MPIP program, continues to test normal numbers, and we have 0 non-negatives again. Going into pigs, So we had the BAFA, FPA, and agglutination test, and just this test overwhelmingly different than the cattle brucella programs testing, where they'll test one animal in serial from the beginning. Porcine tests tend to be in parallel. Porcine tests tend to be in serial, meaning if they're BAFA positive, then they run the FPA. They don't run all the tests on the serum all at once. So that's why you see that step down effect to find and clarify those suspects versus those positives for us to respond to. Same thing with the pseudorabies, where we do the 1 GB ELISA and verify the GP1. We had no cases of Lyme dislosis within that testing that we responded to, and one case of pseudorabies that we went responded to track animal movement and got clarified. Federal testing, so we have benchmarks to meet for our federal surveillance programs for both African swine fever, classical swine fever on the swine side, and then the scrapie program on the small ruminant side. And so the scrapie program, just as a reminder, switched from animal to credits. And so different types of animals, pig versus mature but healthy, give you different numbers. So we're working to get those credits through Dr. Bull's team, Donna, and a lot of people out of Giddings are working really hard to increase the number of sheep credits we get over time to address that disparity, and that we have a very successful goat surveillance program, but for various reasons, sheep dropped off. And we've been supported with USDA's small ruminant staff in helping us get those numbers up with some incentives. Most of we haven't gotten in trouble for African swine fever. We're working on finding a place to, or finding a protocol to consistently get those tissues. The requirements on them is it can't just be carbon surveillance. They need to be sick pigs. And so not being able to rely on TBVL to give us sick pig samples to meet the credit, we're having to find other sources of sick pigs that meet their case definition to send in the specific tissues for. The rest of the surveillance is designed and is collected from PWD. These are our 2023 positives. Didn't change much. Just have those depopulated ones. You can see the step. We have a couple that their positive numbers are going up and they're not clustered by depopulation. So it just means that as they're slowly working through their population, they are still detecting some. So there might be some accumulation of diseases on those places that haven't been depopulated yet. Our 2024 table is trending much healthier and has a better reason for that. These are still working on their first line. And then looking at the spread across Texas with the years, the 2023 positive followed by 2024, we've only had a couple, one really site since last time. During the quarter, we had Kerr County in 2024 identified. It was confirmed October 30th, and it was linked to 2 years already. So it was our program working and finding and testing those trace animals and those exposed properties out that helped us find this, and we've been working on them for our traces since 2021. We've been working on either finding the animals to clarify risk or disease status, or working with them on the property level surveillance programs. The FAs go through and review those. We've been able to close 82% of the ones from 2021, 32% of the ones from 2022, 56% of the ones from 2023. That's back. We worked really hard to get this done, and not just us, but the park to be sure to everything that we can do and getting their plans in place, working with these producers, so they know what the expectation is so that they can be prepared to work with us and not have this uncertainty or unknown of what it takes to close that trace with the appropriate amount of surveillance if they can't find the trace animals. And then from 2024, we're still working through, but we have 35% of them already closed. So that's what's happened. Quarter one of the fiscal year 25. Sorry, I forgot what year it was. Do you have any questions?
Thanks very much, Dr. Next item on the agenda will be a presentation of USDA Veterinary Service Program.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Still morning.
Hello, hello, audience. My name is Patricia Collins. I am the area veterinarian in charge for veterinary services here in Texas. I'll give you a overview of our staffing and some of the import-export stuff and training, and then I'll try not to duplicate too much of what was already said about the World Screwworm and our preparedness there. But I do have some updates there. And finally, I'll try to give a little bit of brief comments on the cattle fever tick program from the USDA side. Mr. Picanza couldn't attend this morning. So on the staffing side, you may have heard there's been some changes to the workforce across the federal government. USDA is included in that, and we did have 2 personnel in Texas that did accept the deferred resignation program, 1 veterinarian and 1 animal health technician. So we will be onboarding them at the end of this month. We are currently under a hiring freeze indefinitely, and we have been told that for every employee is lost for every 4 employees lost agency-wide, we will be allowed at some point to recruit 1 person to that. So I just want to mention that. Currently, we have 37 employees. 16 of those are veterinarians, 12 are animal health technicians, and we have 6 term animal health technicians, meaning that they have a year term employment with us with the option to extend. Their duties primarily revolve around the high path response across the country, and those folks are deployed so that our folks can stay home and take care of work. So we're still concerned, don't know if we're going to be allowed to extend those folks. Most of them, their term expires this spring. Moving on to training. In January of this year, veterinary services, along with help from Texas Tech University College of Veterinary Medicine hosted a bovine tuberculosis course in Amarillo. We had 20 state and federal veterinarians. 5 were from Texas, but we had other folks from Oklahoma, Idaho, Kansas, Nebraska, and Indiana. And what made this course special was we were able to utilize a rendering plant and an actual dairy to train these folks in necropsy technique and type necropsy, and also train them for CZT. That's a supplemental test on dairy cattle and test positive for and finally, they were also trained on capsule. So feedback on that was very positive. And then just to add what Rex was saying earlier about the authorized personnel program, the last accreditation orientation class held at the 35 vets were accredited and also went through the authorized personnel program. There's another class coming up next, May, and that class usually incorporates not just Texas grads, but also Oklahoma State. So moving over to import and export. As you heard earlier today, the southern border ports were closed for a period of time due to the new World Screwworm detection in Mexico. Equine imports were reopened on January 21st. There's a 7-day quarantine for those horses, which has already been standard, and now that they're coming from a new World Screwworm affected country, an existing protocol which requires treatment 3 to 5 days prior to import with ivermectin has been instituted. So, as you heard also, there's a protocol for pre-clearance inspection and treatment of Mexican cattle, and that was agreed upon last month. That protocol calls for assembly of cattle at an APHIS-approved pre-export facility where Zagarpa, Mexican regulatory vet will inspect them for wounds. Any cattle with wounds are turned back. The cattle are supposed to be treated with ivermectin or a other agreed upon product. So we don't pull out ivermectin, but I heard you this morning They're not. Yeah,
According to Berkeley,
yeah,
it has to be what's labeled there. They left that in there.
Yeah.
To
to give wiggle room.
but until they name it.
So currently, there's a phased reopening of the cattle ports, Santa Teresa and Douglas, Arizona, were the first ports to open. I did a quick check on the numbers coming in, and it's in the thousands, much less than the same time last year. And then just this week, limited cattle imports via Presidio occurred, and they're crossing, I think, 400 a day to start with. My understanding is that Presidio will be the only Texas port allowed to import. On a similar note with the New World screwworm, APHIS will continue allowing the importation of dogs. I think must have a health certificate stating that they've been inspected for screwworm and are free. So moving over to HPAI, a couple of numbers for you since we last met in November. I think at that time we were at 48 states. Now we're at all 50 states and one territory with Puerto Rico having had a detection. There's 1,594 confirmed premises nationwide. This is since the outbreak began February 2022. 1,122 control areas have been released. And as you heard, the last detection in Texas in a commercial was in April 2024. For deployments, we continue to move people here and there and everywhere trying to respond to this. Currently, I've got 6 people deployed either in California, Ohio, and Missouri. And there's an incident management team that's deployed that's split between Pennsylvania and Ohio right now. A new program has been introduced for HPAI, and that is the Biosecurity Compliance Audit Program, or BCAP. The intent of this program is to audit the biosecurity practices for infected commercial poultry farms to help prevent reinfection. And this has not happened in Texas. But some other states have reported the same premises being infected multiple times. 4 or 5, I think, in some cases. So that is a huge expense to the taxpayer to pay for indemnity for each time for these folks. So this program is designed to help places tighten up biosecurity and prevent reinfection. And to be eligible for indemnity, should they become reinfected, they must pass this BCAP audit. And the program includes state and federal auditors. I believe some THC has already got some folks trained or about to be trained for that, so we'll be prepared should we need to implement that here in Texas. And finally, on that point with BCAP, the final rule for this has not been completed. It is open in the Federal Register right now. If anybody cares to comment on that, public comment period ends on March. Moving over to HPAI 2024 livestock, we've already heard a lot about that, but I'll add to what was stated earlier about the National Milk Testing Strategy. The overall goal of this strategy is to ultimately declare the U.S. dairy herd free of HPAI. So as you heard, there's a 5-stage roadmap. Currently, 3 states have achieved that unaffected status, and Texas is still currently affected. As you heard, testing will start soon, and Michigan, Arizona, California, the other affected states currently. All the other states that have not tested are called unaffected museum status, I believe. But anyway, the strategy there is to test the milk silos, which are the big aggregation points, and if those are negative, that clears that area. And if their virus is infected, then THC, along with Department of State Health Service and Veterinary Services, will work to identify individual farms and measures there. Finally, talk a little bit more about screwworm. And as you heard, the New York Screwworm Strike teams have been formed. There are 2 teams of 20 members each. One is the Southwest team, which includes Texas. The other is the Southeastern team. And a lot of there was an attempt made to recruit people that had experience with New World Screwworm when we had it in Florida in 2016. So those folks have started meeting and planning, and there is an in-person meeting scheduled sometime next month. I don't think the date's set yet, but in South Texas to meet together and train. The work continues trying to identify a new website for raising sterile flies. As you heard, Mexico continues to have protections, and at least the last information I could find, and this may be a little bit old, but they reported 61 animal cases in those states that you heard earlier, Chiapas, Campeche, Tabasco. Those states are below the checkpoint line that Mexico has set, and Mexico has started sterile fly delivery over there. I believe the first one started near the end of January. So, yes. No, those were flies pupae that came from Panama. Yeah. So, lastly, I'll just add some remarks that Mr. Picanto gave me briefly this morning before he had to rush off to something else. As you heard, the cattle fever tick program has been very, very involved in screwworm response. They already have their mounted control inspectors and people along the border, and they're used to dealing with active parasites. I knew that we are also looking at applying measures to stray cattle that we round up outside of the systematic zone. And there are a number of those that get rounded up periodically throughout the year around the Big Bend area and so on. We are working on that. John tells me that new infestations this year are on track to be the same or less than last year. And he reminds us that they also are participating in the HPAI response, and at any one time, they have as many as 8 people deployed out of state working on that. I'd be happy to take any questions and try to answer them.
Any questions? Thanks very much, Dr. Collins. Tell Mr. Picanto hello for sending our regards.
And he says hello back.
Awesome. Next item on the agenda will be item 14, the budget status report. Ms. Paula Andrews.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Pleasure to be presenting to you guys today. My name is Paula Andrews, and I am Director. Okay, budgeted revenue as received as of January 31st, 2025. We received $263,657 in animal health program fee revenue. We've received about 31% of our estimated collected budget of $860,000. For federal funds, we've received $3,005,883, bringing us a total of $3,283,647 in received revenue captured. Federal funds received as of January 31st is $3,005,883. That brings us a total of $3,103,863. We did receive $97,980 as of August last year. All of that funding actually received into our field strategy. These are our expenditures for 2025 as of January 31st, 2025. These are broken down by objects of expense. Our major expense is salary and wages. That makes up about 71% of our total expenditure cost. Next in line would be our other operating expense, and that's about 16%. So total what we've expended year to date as of January is $7,701,610. Our available budget have left for fiscal year 25 is $13,037,413. This slide is broken down by strategy level. You can see that field operations makes up most of those expenditures, about 54%. Then our next phase one is central administration, that's about 11%. That is it for the budget for revenue and expenditures.
All right, any questions on that item? Next item for Ms. Andrews will be item 15, consideration of and possible action on agency contracts, purchases, and lease.
Chairman, 14 is an action item.
Oh, that was an action item. Okay, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the budget status report as discussed today.
Second. Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the budget status report as discussed today. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. No. Motion passes unanimously. Thanks very much. Excuse me for getting that vote.
Okay, item number 15, consideration of possible action on the contract purchase with the lease item. We have a committee cost of $963,000, a not to exceed cost. For our laptop refresh, we're estimating $193,000. Hyper-V, $55,000. OK Corral, $125,000. Portable spray boxes, $250,000. HP without NP project, about $65,000. Fleet shoot, about $165,000, and then raw steel and material for that. That is it for our consideration.
We should.
Okay, any questions?
That's about three.
Yeah, Hill payments.
Silencer. Pensions, we're getting. Estimates are close to 2 or 3 different.
That's be.
Yes. We're getting close. That was just.
This is just not to exceed.
Not to exceed.
Any further questions?
Yes.
Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the budget status report as discussed today.
This will be contracts first.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the contract purchases and leases as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Second to approve contract purchases as presented. Any further discussion or questions? Not all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Paula. The next item will be agenda item 16. President finance activities.
Good morning, Commissioner. Wanted to give you the 2024 compliance activities report. It's going to mainly focus on the 10 new enforcement investigators, kind of show you what we've done and accomplished the last year with them. Before I begin, I know the important stuff. Got to thank Jim Smith here for helping get all these numbers in this report together. I do have a few folks here with our team. Vince Montgomery, our senior investigator out of DeKalb or Texarkana area, and Megan Fullen and Jose Rodriguez.
Megan's out of Houston area and Jose's from Laredo. They're two of our new enforcement investigators. They've never been to commission meetings, so they're getting to see this for the first time. So we want to start, I'll give just a brief for those, our 2023 numbers that came in. We had 1,396 compliance cases that year. Want to highlight down there, the entry violations were 319. We had a little over 60,000 penalties assessed, 23, which are notice of violations issued. And we had 64 criminal cases filed and 179 complaints generated against those 64 criminal cases. And then we move to 24, we went down a little. We had 1,045 cases. We went up from 319 to 570 on our entry violations. Increase of 251 cases. Those guys sitting up there working in roadblocks at these state lines. We assessed a little over 72,024, and we had 106 criminal cases filed with 473 complaints. Still averaging that 3 complaints per person. One of those was a very large number of complaints. So we're still in that average. Next 5 slides I have just give us a breakdown of where the compliance cases are occurring in each region. Taylor Lloyd is our senior investigator there. We have Candy Woodward and Paul Fields, our enforcement investigators up there. Left-hand side of the Panhandle, we do a lot of road work there. You can see there's lots of colors turn a little darker there, and that's where a lot of our work's at. We are trying to get some stops on the east side in the Panhandle and start working those once we get some a little more assistance and get people to stop them. This is our Laredo and Peeville. We have those joined together. Mark Stockbridge is our investigator for that area. Jose and Wayne Dubose are enforcement investigators there. You can see Brooks County turn dark, and that's Jose works out here. It's stopped there a lot. It's starting to turn dark, and we're in hopes that those guys down there will help detour some of this illegal fever tick movement, in that area. One is our Keating region. Humphrey Hale, investigator there. Michael Campos and Megan there are 2 enforcement investigators. We're starting to do a lot of road stops on I-10 in Orange, on the east side of the state there. PBA has a stop that they do all their training there. Agriculture, so they've got to stop running 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday through Thursday and trying to get it to 5 days. So we are been working a little bit with them down there. Fortunately, there's 1,000 big trucks come through there a day and they're not hauling livestock. So we have to weed through that. But it's getting better. We've also been helping meetings with some equine stable inspections due to our increase in positive equine infectious anemia in the area, with the racing. So we've been helping them do that, trying to see if we can help curb some of that in any way. Sulphur Springs region, Les is our senior investigator there. He has Billy Huey and Jonathan Westbrook. And he manages those 2. Several dark counties up there, the Cook County, Grayson, Lamar, and Bowie.
Cook County has a cattle sale, plus we have a road stop on I-35 where it's a lot of traffic. Bowie County, we have a stop on I-30. And then we have a stop in Harrison on the east side of that region, about halfway down. That's on I-20. A lot of cases up here. There's 3 state lines up there that we monitor, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. Lots of traffic coming in the state. So that's the reason for a lot of cases up there, a lot of stops, but we're seeing progress. Our last one is the Stephenville region. We have all 4 senior investigators. They all have a piece of the pie in this one. It's kind of where we all join. But Les is the supervisor over Ron Smith and Mecca Clark, who are the enforcement investigators there. And they're getting going in I-44, some new places. So we're seeing a lot of progress up there in the movement. So we will go to. So this is kind of this is the 10 new positions that was created. And it's based on January 1, 24 to December 31st. We really didn't get all 10 going until probably April before we all got them all hired. So this is really not 12 months of 10 guys working every day, but it's as close as we can get for the past year. For 23, actual road stops that Jenna pulled on, performed roadside, was 33. This past year, those positions had 5,373 stops. They have done LSIs, livestock shipment inspections. So, 5,300 increase. 474 of those stops were non-compliant. So we picked up extra 74 on our compliance cases by those guys being out there doing their job, checking, their livestock. The bottom left is the senior investigators. I want to highlight them. I can't forget about them because they have done their job. They took on the role of supervising every one of these people. The S has 4, the rest have 2. So they've done training, oversee every one of their cases, read their cases. So that's the total of cases that they've handled, a little over 1,000 this year that those guys have been in touch with that case somehow, some way, have to frame them. So it's been it's been busy. It's been a busy year. I did want to highlight them, that the work they do, and some of the things we've done. We've done in training in June for high-pass AI, emergency response training. Zollies, we have Don Mahawkey and Holly Pigeon Hales are close enough. I can't get it right in. Dwayne Easy and Matt Kabbalah. We got, I guess we was there 2.5 days or so. Trained them on the response to HPAI outbreak. So these guys, we can pull and assist if we don't want them. But if we have an outbreak, we can utilize these guys. They know how to get vehicles stopped, but they need some more tools in their belt to learn what to do with the field. So we hope that it helps. We had a good training. They had good presentation for it. There was lots of social media outreach. I had to thank Aaron and the communications department this year. They put out stuff, social media, telling folks what to expect, how to prepare, what to do if they come into our state, what they would need, what to expect when they got stop signs. It has helped. It really has. The bottom one, and we'll send a link to that if y'all want to watch that video. It's a video that Paul Fields, Channel 10 up in Amarillo, done on him. I always worry the media is going to shine the light, but they did shine a good light on us. Good interview, what we're doing,
what we expect, what we would like folks to do we want you to come in compliant. You don't want to have issues, but it was a guidance and I think it was a good interview. And, I do want to thank everybody for the work that from the bottom to the top on the work, these 10 new positions. I could keep calling it a new project. It's been a proud to work with people from everybody's got a common sense approach, because that's kind of what we've done. Use the common sense approach on where to stop folks, when to be out there, and it is working. Not to say it never from growing pains. It's the general public, the locals, don't like being stopped. But unfortunately, some of these stops we have are 2 miles or 5 miles inside the state line, and you're going to stop some local. And they are grasping while we're there. We're there to protect the state. And if they live in the state, we might be protecting their animals at some point. And so we're trying to give that spiel to the general public and just be polite with everybody. Now, it is working. People are coming around. You stop them. Out of staters that's been through here once, whether they got a fine or a warning letter from us. The next time we've had some come back and they're holding health papers out the window. So it's working. It really is. I was asked this morning what's our hardest task in getting people to stop. And with the MOUs that y'all approved and everybody's drafted, and we got our first MOU in yesterday signed. So we're fixing to have law enforcement present who won't stop. There will be a way to get you stopped. And if they'll just stop, we'll work. You know, we do use the common sense approach. But that's basically an overview of what we've done the last year. Thank you for your time. This is anybody.
What agencies do you have MOUs with?
Well, we work with DPS best we can now, but that's a shorthanded. They'll help us in areas, but we got an MOU in from Brooks yesterday. We've been handing them out the last 30 days, going around Orange County. I think Childress, I've got one Childress on the email. So they're going around to the counties that we do the most roadside work, and they're just going through their processes. Wascom PD helps us a lot, but they just shorthanded. But they can, with that MOU, they can give us a guy off duty.
None so far with Parks and Wildlife.
No, sir. None so far apart from my life. It's mostly local PDs, sheriff's offices. We've had a couple of the constables. And then, like I said, DPS helps us, but they've never hadn't charged us a dime yet. When they can help us, they'll help us. They help us a lot on I-35, but they can't always be there.
Have y'all reached out to practices in Kansas and joining this thing, hoping that you're enforcing it? So we obviously get a lot of animals in from Mexico, and you know, historically we've not been required to have a health paper for those animals to come to our practice, receive treatment, go back home, and so we start getting notifications through other outlets. We go on a procedure that we didn't know anything about.
And we haven't. I can say I don't think we have. We have been talking a lot on the permit from the emergency care or health care. We've been trying to tell folks, or kept on getting, hey, want to see the doc over here, you can call get this permit, gives us our traceability, and gets you back home. We've been doing that.
We understand it now.
Yeah.
That'd be good to we let people know what's coming.
Thanks for Rex's, put out the information on our authorized personnel newsletter to inform its practices. They can do that.
Not everybody reads.
Thank you very much, Clay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next item will be consideration of a possible action on August 15th. Mr. Joe R. Fahey, how are you this morning, sir? Welcome.
Thank you. Morning, Chairman. Morning, Commissioners. First action item, agenda item, is consideration of action on proposed decision. I think you'll be happy to know that we're bringing any CWD related cases for you. We have one proposal for decision, and I guess take a step back and kind of explain how we get to this point. The past almost 3 years, I've been coming before the commission and presenting cases, disciplinary orders, and by and large, those have either been stipulated by the producer or we have default ordered by the State Office of Administrative Hearings. We have the ability, or individual producers have the ability to contest the notice of violation. And when they do that, if they do it timely, we refer it to the State Office of Administrative Hearing. They're able to secure an attorney and have them represent the hearing. In this case, this is the first instance that, since I've been here, that we had an individual producer appeal the notice of violation and it went to a hearing. So just a little bit of background. This individual presented 4 cattle at market. One calf did not have official identification, and the market staff tagged the calf with official IDs. Had the traceability at that point. We issued a notice of violation for a violation of our PB rules, transporting the dairy breed cattle without official identification being applied prior to arrival at the market. And based on the timing of when he received the notice of violation, he did timely file a notice of appeal. On December 9th, this past year, we did have a hearing, and the individual did argue that he purchased the calf without official identification. So he said that he was basically an order buyer. He purchased the calf, and basically 1 week to the next, took it from one market, sold it at another. Never laid eyes on the calf, and it was caught at the terminal market. Our argument was, regardless, did take it from the market that he purchased it at, took it to a premises, and then when it left that premises, it was required to have official identification prior to that movement. In addition, the reason that it got a notice of violation was it received a warning from the same offense 2020. Based on our penalty matrix, a second violation of that same rule directs us to issue an administrative penalty of between $200 and $600. And on these first notices of violations, we generally, as a rule, request a $200 penalty. So we issue that penalty. And in this case, Stratus appealed it. And so at this point, staff is speaking, and the administrative law judge, after the hearing, recommended a $200 penalty. After the hearing, at the close of the hearing, you're required to file the exhibits that we introduced. We did that, and then the administrative law judge has 60 days to issue a proposal for decision. So they don't have final authority. They can't issue a final order. That comes from the commission, and the commission has the authority to issue the final. The proposal for decision came back within weeks, very, very quickly. And based on that, I'm just going to admit there's a lot of findings facts. I'm going to highlight the bold ones so that we're not here all day. And so the judge found that because Mr. Addison received a warning, basically he had knowledge of this being a violation. And then he also transported the dairy calf within the state. It's an interstate movement without required official identification being applied. And because he received that warning in 2020, he knew or should have known the requirements. When we send warning letters, we do include our rules, and this specific rule 43.2 is quite lengthy. And so if you had all the information, we also send the statute that authorizes us to regulate tuberculosis events. and his failure to adhere to these regulations. One, that was finding that the administrative law judge now. Based on those findings, the administrative law judge determined that the $200 administrative penalty would act as sufficient deterrent against future violations. And based on the findings of facts, then the judge issued these conclusions of law. Most important of which is based on the findings of facts, the administrative law judge found that Ms. Radis violated Rule 43.2 and recommended an administrative penalty of $200 be imposed against Ms. Radis. So based on that, staff recommends that motion and approve commissioning materials today.
Do I hear a motion?
Chairman, I move that we adopt the final order under agenda item 17 as presented here today.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the final order as recommended. Any further questions or discussion? Not all in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by no. Motion passes. Very much, sir. Next item on the agenda will be consideration of and possible action on orders relations to approved violations.
So like I mentioned before, agenda item 17, this is what we normally brought for commission. These are commission rule violations that either have received the default EPSOA or all of these cases, they have stipulated to the violation and paid them. There's 11 cases here. I'll go through it quickly. 3 administrative penalties were assessed at Brush Track Race Facility, EIA and IRO violation. They did not have the required documents. 2 administrative penalties. That's for basically the same violation that I mentioned in the prior agenda item, violation of 43.2, movement without area ID. There was 1 administrative penalty that was assessed for failing to comply with standards for authorized personnel. That was a veterinarian. 1 penalty for failing to comply with entry requirements, shows, fairs, or exhibitions. That specifically was fraudulent CDI. Basically, that individual created CDI and signed it as a veterinarian. Veterinarian reached out to us and said, I never signed this. I was doing work in Wyoming. I never saw this animal, so that's kind of we discovered that. 1 administrative penalty was assessed for failure to comply with quarantine animal requirements. And there was another administrative penalty for failure to maintain dealer records. That specific swine dealer, we after talking to him and paid that fine, he now maintains very good records and uses fine documentation. So that was a good case for us. 1 administrative penalty was a payment for a notice of violation that was 2 years prior, failure to comply with fowl registration program registration requirements. So that was they are now in compliance. They are continuing to apply and get the registration requirement go forward. And then there was 1 agreed settlement so that we didn't have to take it to SOA. These are the individuals that staff recommends that you adopt the motion to adopt.
Okay, so we need a motion to adopt the final orders as presented.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt the final orders under agenda item 18 as presented here today.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the final orders as presented today. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by no. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, sir. Next agenda item will be a presentation of petitions for rulemaking. Penny Murray.
Good morning. I'm Penny Maley. I'm a staff attorney here. Our first item 19 involves two different petitions, both regarding exhibitions. The first 19A, the exhibitions are kind of two different types of exhibitions. The first one involves largely jackpot shows. So the request concerns Texas animals attending a jackpot show in Texas with attendance from potentially out of state participants. That's really small text, but the gist of the petition asks that in cases of these jackpot shows, these interstate events, that the commission consider waiving or getting rid of the TDI requirement for Texas exhibitors. So again, these are animals that reside in Texas, travel to an in-state Texas show that has exhibitors that have traveled from out of state. One of the major reasons for the request for this petition was that getting a CBI to attend all of these shows is financially difficult for a lot of young presenters. These shows are family run, or they're 4-H or FFA shows. They're volunteered. And so it kind of presents an uneven footing for wealthy versus just an average presenter. The other consideration the petition raises is that in a lot of these cases, in order to generate participants in the show will choose to ban out-of-state participants, and that really impacts the local economy because these out-of-state exhibitors come and they stay in the hotels, they visit the restaurants, they visit the gas stations there, and so they've seen a lot of impact with this particular CDI requirement for mixed shows. Currently, our commission will distinguish between interstate shows and intra-state shows, and we have different requirements for both of those. So again, this rule considers interstate shows, those are shows with mixed attendance. Some of the things our staff considered when doing this petition was that anytime animals are congregating from multiple premises, there's an obvious increased risk in disease transmission. And the purpose of these entry requirements for shows and fairs is really to reduce the risk of disease transmission and also ensure that if there is instances of disease, we can perform an epidemiological investigation. So we looked at the overall risk from Texas origin animals attending these shows and whether or not there was any way that we can alternatively perform a disease investigation should there be an outbreak. And what we found is that disease risk was not appreciably higher for interstate shows if out-of-state participants continued to meet the entry requirements, and that we decided that disease investigations could be accomplished in another method by asking show sponsors to maintain records of the participants, which would allow us traceability in the event of an outbreak. So staff recommends amending Chapter 51 entry requirements for this type of exhibition. The proposed changes really include the section 51.1, which is our definition section, removing the definition of interstate show. So no longer there will be the distinction between inter and intra-state show, and adding a definition for official identification. The big changes, of course, happen in 51.4, which is our show, fairs, and exhibition rules. The changes would create a record-keeping requirement for show sponsors. They would be required to maintain records of that show for a year, and in the event of an outbreak, or at the request of the commission staff, they would have to turn those records over to us so that we can perform an FBE investigation. The rule eliminates the distinction between interstate and intrastate shows, and it maintains entry requirements for out-of-state participants while eliminating the need for Texas participants to meet those same out-of-state requirements. We've taken really careful work of this rule in particular. We've gone through for each type of animal, we've outlined what all of those entry requirements would look like, not only for out-of-state participants, but for in-state participants. So it's a really user-friendly rule. If you're planning on visiting a show, you open up this 51.4 and go to what kind of animal you're bringing to a show, whether or not you're in-state or out-of-state, and it gives you a breakdown of exactly what kind of tests you need, what kind of documents you need. So it's a really user-friendly rule. We've seen already pretty significant interest in this petition. I believe Amanda provided a printed out agenda with 11 written comments so far. And we may have additional public comments.
Yeah. So if I'm just clarifying this, staff is recommending option 2. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. All right, we have Jennifer Holtzman signed up to speak to address this action. There you are.
Okay.
You'll state your name for the record.
Well, I get to officially say good afternoon to the committee. It's finally afternoon. So thank you. The reason that I'm here, I'm Jennifer Holtzman. I'm a stock show mom of 6 daughters. We've traveled all over the U.S., done various local jackpots, majors, national, state fairs, etc. And we have a livestock show venue that's up in Paris, Texas. And when I allow an out-of-state, even if I have one out-of-state exhibitor to come and show, everybody who's entered from Texas under the current rule has to get a CBI, and it's only valid for that one location. I have a ton of Texas people that complain to me all the time. I've never had to do that. Why is this law being enforced? And I tell them, I don't know. I'm new to this area, but this is what has been taking place. I have people that will come to me and say, I have one animal. I'm showing one animal. Now I have to go to the vet and try to schedule time. The vet closes 8 to 5. Most of them aren't open on Saturday. The show is on Saturday. How do I get a health certificate? It's $80, $45, $50. That's a whole nother fee. And so it's really hindering my children from being able to show. I said, I'm sorry, this is Texas Animals rule, and if I let one person out, then everybody in Texas has to happen. And they said, well, it doesn't make any sense to us. We live in Texas. We're not crossing state lines. Why does this apply? From my point of view, it's the same as if you had the out-of-state exhibitors. We still need those health certificates. And after listening to everybody today, Texas seems like they are doing a really good job keeping the disease outbreaks in check. And it's livestock that's moving from state lines, crossing state lines. So of course, we want the livestock crossing the state line to continue to have those health certificates. And we want the youth that can't afford to get one for every single show they go to every other weekend to be able to still come and show and be on the same even playing field as like maybe people who have more money and it's no big deal for them to call their vet, schedule an appointment, and get their animals up there and get a CPI. So I'm coming for all the parents and the kids that feel they're being disadvantaged. And so I just want it to be equal for everybody. And what my biggest complaint is, they don't understand why if they're in Texas, they live in Texas, their animals are healthy, why do they need this certificate? Because mostly for out of state. As a stock show sponsor, when we sign up people, you have your name, your address, your phone number, your email, the Texas validation tag, scraping tag, copies of registration paper. I mean, everything that you need that you could possibly want to have to trace back to whoever was at that show. So the record keeping is there, and it would be really easy to hand that over. It's all digitalized. How you were talking about things being electronic. There's full electronic software that runs it all. There's a print button. There's a list of everybody and all their animals. So the traceability is pretty easy. So I just would ask for your consideration to just make it an even playing field for everybody to attend all the shows.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your
Appreciate
time.
coming. I'll now entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move the proposed amendments to chapter 51 concerning shoes and regulations as presented by commission staff be published in the Texas Register with a 30-day comment period.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second, and that motion is for option 2 as printed. Any further discussion or questions?
Just want to clarify, if I understand, the exhibitors that come out of state into Texas will still continue to do their help case. That's right.
Correct.
And then you're going to utilize the exhibitors within Texas that go to that same show are not going to be required to do CVI.
That's right.
And then if we had an issue, it would be traced back to the
Registration papers at the show.
any folks.
Any other? All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by no.
No.
Okay. If that triggers, roll call vote.
Chairman, I would encourage the staff directive that they investigate what, at least within the adjoining states to Texas, to take a look at this, how other states handling it, and investigate the possibility of some type of a passport system for these animals to get one set of papers. But if the other states will comply with the same type of regulation, and maybe they could make this easier to where people could go both directions and be treated the same way.
Okay. So is there any further discussion? Is everybody straight on what we're voting? Oh, we've already voted on that. Got to revote. My numbers are not corresponding here, so I'm looking for the proper place. Bear with me for just a minute. That's it. Okay. Now we're going to do a roll call vote.
Can I ask this comment about one set of papers?
Sure.
I think it's a common sense, logical approach to still put the responsibility on the exhibitor. And that's part of a learning lesson in animal herdsmanship, is that you do have to comply with the rules that address animal diseases, and that is something that we need to teach in our 4-H and FFA livestock project. Because we're in an era where there does not seem to be respect for science or rules and regulations presented by Texas Animal Health. So what I like about this, you would be responsible for one set of papers. And I think a task force would be great. How do you, Dr. Denzis, how would you set that up? I recommend the
We'd have
task
to,
force.
we'd have to check the adjoining states and see if some kind of typical program. We can certainly do that. I'd have to look, I don't know, I haven't looked at the other states' regulations to see what might be in place, but we can certainly look.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're voting a roll call vote on the proposed motion. So Commissioner Evans,
It's, I know.
Johnson?
Yeah.
Jordan, not here. Klein, Barrett Klein?
Yes.
Joe Leathers, not here. Tommy Oates? Osterkamp? Aye. TJ Klein?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes.
Trotter? Yes. Sturgis?
Yes, this is for 19A, correct?
Yes, sir. And the chairman votes yes. So that motion passes 9-1.
The next petition for rulemaking, 19B, is concerns exhibition poultry. So in this instance, largely it is exhibitors in Texas leaving the state to attend a show and earning. So a little bit different scenario than the previous petition. The request asked that our current rules be amended to allow exhibition poultry to bypass CBI and entry permits returning to Texas. The petition would still have birds meet certain criteria, namely that they have tested negative for PT within the past year, that they originate from an AI clean flock within the last 6 months, and that they be part of the National Poultry Improvement Plan with a File 9-3 form. The petition also asks, they've had difficulty finding AI testers, so they asked the commission to update our rules to allow Texas authorized PT testers to also perform and submit AI samples to labs. They note that this is an approach that Oklahoma has already used to address this issue. They also asked that we amend our definition of poultry to include a specific category for exhibition poultry, setting it apart from yard or commercial poultry. So presently, commission rules require poultry entering Texas to be accompanied by a CBI and entry permit. Additionally, the commission also requires a negative flock or negative individual bird test for AI within 30 days prior to entry, and a negative PT test within 30 days prior to entry unless the bird originates from an NPIP flock. Additional testing requirements are imposed when travel into Texas occurs from a high path affected state. In those cases, poultry traveling into Texas must seek specific permission from the commission. That's our program member in charge of that. And they also need to have a negative AI test within 72 hours prior to entry. So some of the things we considered with this petition were the overall risk of disease transmission, especially in light of the ongoing high path concerns. So poultry exhibitions are potential sources for spread, like all exhibitions are. In this case, they are, again, birds traveling out of state to mixed attendance exhibitions. Transport puts stress on birds, and there is frequent lack of biosecurity at these events, our FE staff found. Requiring birds that leave the state to participate in an exhibition to have a permit and a CBI prior to entering Texas ensures birds have been inspected prior to reentry, and having that complete that CBI is one of our biggest steps in disease mitigation, to have a vet have eyes on a bird. to ensure that they're free of any kind of symptoms or evidence of disease. Birds from an AI clean flock provide little assurance that birds remain free from AI following a competition in an out-of-state poultry exhibition where birds are commingled with birds from their jurisdiction. So at this time, in light of those concerns, staff recommends denying this petition. I believe there is public comment here.
Yeah, we have two persons signed up for comment. I'll call on you both now. Karen Ritchie.
Thanks, Commissioner. I'm the one who submitted the petition, and I'd just like to make the point that there's never been any AI case from exhibition poultry movement ever. Not a single one. Most AI cases that we hear about are from migratory flocks of wild birds. Although there are maybe some concerns about biosecurity at some of our events and the way that birds commingle, exhibition poultry is handled a lot differently than other poultry. A lot of the other AI cases are in commercial flocks and other things. There's just enough difference that I feel like that it should be reconsidered. We handle our birds, like I said, differently. They live mostly in covered barns. They're not at high risk of wild bird populations and other things. If you're going to have a CBI inspection and a health permit on a bird that's there on Friday and leaving on Saturday, it's not even really going to show any symptoms. By the time anything does start, the way that we handle our animals, if we have a sniffle or a cough, we're going to put that bird down before anything else happens. So really, our own level of how we handle our animals is a great ally in this situation. If we can't move and do what we need to do in our industry, we're not just a hobby type of field here. This affects our children and our future of agriculture. It already is having a dent on our events and the things that people do today. So I don't agree with it being that much of a high risk. There are a lot of other things that are a higher risk than exhibition poultry traveling. These birds are groomed and dealt with to degrees of a service animal. We have a lot invested in our birds, and similar to what the other person was talking about with their jackpot events and other things, these are important and these matter, and this is a huge part of agriculture as a whole.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know if anybody has any questions for me, but
I do. So I want to understand this right. You get a certificate of veterinary inspection to go to Oklahoma for a sale or show.
for sure.
And you have to get another one in Oklahoma to bring it back.
Well, right now I can go into Oklahoma without one. I have to get it to come back. So what we've done for years and years and years is our flocks are PT tested, or the individual bird can be tested at the event for one-time exhibition. But we're PT tested and we're NTIP. So with NTIP, when we file our 9-3 form, we put down exactly what bird, sex, breed, color, you name it, is traveling from our home address to where it's going and when it's traveling back. It's a tracker. I mean, we volunteered the information for it and we pay for it.
So if they get a CBI in Texas to go to Oklahoma, that CBI also gets them back?
It pulls down there's
But
an
it
active
is
case of
not
AI in that state. They can be tested here, leave, move there, and then come back on the same CBI and test them.
Well, and the requirements change.
Problem
for
is
their
that when they're an active case, our rules say that those animals have to be 2 hours coming in the state. So it's hard for them to get the test results back, go that function, and come back. And they're exposed to all the other birds from other states move in without.
The birds from other states are tested.
For PT, for AI.
Most of them both. You can't be NPIP without PT, at least. And then most of them have AI.
It's the AI. It's the AI of the prevalence around the state. There's 30 states with outbreaks. And that's where the problem is. In them.
The avian influenza has always existed. It's not gonna.
It's falling out of the sky.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Well, thank you for your time. I hope you'll read back over it and reconsider.
I'll call on now Casey Etzler, Texas Poultry Federation. Morning, sir. Good afternoon.
Morning, Chairman, Commissioners, how are y'all doing? Just wanted to speak on 19B on that. Y'all have already heard the numbers that we've lived with on HPAI. It scares my members to death. We're taking all kind of biosecurity. We're looking at all kind of options. We're having meetings with USDA over it. But just to kind of put it real quick, in the last 30 days, we've had 18.9 million birds die, killed across the United States because of this. So as we are proposing a change on show birds to our exhibition birds, a couple of things that I'm concerned about that could affect our industry, which in the state of Texas, our industry is fifth in broilers and fifth in layers. So we've got a big egg poultry population here in the state. Don't ask me on all the numbers, but I'll spill them off at some point if I need to. But one is the definition of exhibition poultry. I'll just be honest. That can change the outlook of WOA definitions because we live with WOA's definition when we have to start indemnifying for USDA purposes and stuff. So one concern there. Another one is just, in looking at 19B, I know we're talking right now about CBIs or asking that, but if you read it, there's actually a part in there talking about exempting CBIs in permitting. That permitting aspect is going to trace these birds back and forth and give Animal Health Commission that traceability aspect. So I really would hope that y'all would look at that. On that aspect, it is saying that, the birds are being filled out on an NPIP or a National Poultry Improvement Plan 9-3 form, which is a form for movement. It only in theory, it's only going to the state that's receiving them birds. So if there's a show in Oklahoma, that 9-3 only goes with those birds. In theory, it goes those birds in Oklahoma. We don't have any proof of those birds coming back into Texas. So that's where a permit is vital. On that, they're talking on 19.B about Section 5 on the waiving of birds in a high-pat state, and I think we just kind of addressed that a little bit. Dr. Dinges did, but that is extremely scary. I mean, if you've taken birds out, moved them into a state that is known to have high-pat avian influenza, and then you move them back with us having a population of ranking fifth in broilers and egg layers, it is a scary concern to us. So we would hope that you really consider this one, either at least look at it very heavily and evaluate it or deny. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll take any question.
Thank you so much. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor.
Let me have a motion.
I
I have a comment on this.
myself down. That was the recommended, that's what you recommended.
Right.
We recommended denying it.
That was, staff recommends, option 3 to deny.
Yeah.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
I have a comment on this. So I've talked with Ms. Ritchie several times, and I think she's thought through a lot of this, but in the current state of, obviously, with what we're dealing with in the country, there's no, in my opinion, there's no way we can approve this today. But I do think there may be some merit in just looking further into it. I know what JC's saying. I honestly think it's an industry, and I'm speaking in my opinion, not the Texas Poultry Federation, that most of them would actually be okay with no CBI, but the permitting piece is important to come back in. But I don't know that 100%. That's my opinion. And I think that maybe we just take a further look at this is the best
course of action to understand exactly all the real risk with what she's wanting to do with those types of birds. So that'd be my motion would be that we request the staff study issue further and bring additional recommendations to the next regular schedule meeting. Option 1, yes.
Is there a second to that motion? Okay, we have a motion and a second to request the staff further study the issue and bring back further recommendations. Any further discussion?
Do you envision that to be a permitting process somewhat like what we're dealing with, bringing animals in for veterinary care, that kind of thing? Just to call in to get that? I think it's pretty reasonable.
We've looked, we sat out and talked about this for hours, talked about permitting and under a hold order coming back, hold order for 2 weeks, make sure they don't have political signs, and we'll look into it further, but we wrapped our brains trying to do something to help them. We'll continue to look into it.
Any further discussion or questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed by no. Motion passes unanimously. And the next item is item 20, consideration of and possible action on adoption of proposed rule.
All right. Last but not least, this is a rule that was proposed last time, up for adoption this time. Maybe it's chapter 41, our beaver tick chapter. The purpose of the amendment, our commission uses various treatment methods in our efforts to control and eradicate cattle fever ticks. One such method is an injectable dormamectin. To ensure our rules meet current science, staff reviewed the dose schedule and the withdrawal period for dormamectin, which is contained in 41.8. The proposed amendment up for adoption today updates the dose schedule from 25 to 28 days to 21 to 28 days, and changes the extended slaughter withholding period from 35 days to a period to be determined by TAHB and USDA APHIS. These were in consultation with FAIR information. So with the commission received no written comments on the proposal within the 30-day comment period. So staff recommends the commission adopt the
Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the amendments to Chapter 41, titled Feeding Ticks, with changes as necessary to the proposed text as published in the December 13, 2024 issue of the Texas Register 49 Texas 10091.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt amendments to chapter 41. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed by no. Motion passes unanimously. And the next item on the agenda is presentation of awards and recognitions, and we might have any listed, okay? So the next item is public comment, and we have one person for public comment. Bonnie Perry. I hope you don't think I forgot about it.
No, thank you. I hate to even bring it up. CWD. I came down here to tell y'all something that I thought was real important about our so-called other half of the enforcement, Parks and Wildlife. My local game warden called me wanting to inspect my annual inspection, my pens. I said, it's a little hot. Why don't we wait? He said, okay. By the way, this hasn't been done in 3 years. Anyway, he calls me back in September. It's cooled off. I said, yes, we can do it. I said, what are we going to do? He said, we're going to count your deer, read a few numbers, and check the box. I said, that's fine. I have no problem. That's part of our agreement. So he said, I'm going to check, read the numbers, count your deer, and check the box. Next, the day we agreed on this inspection, 2 vehicles, Parks and Wildlife vehicles pulled up. 4 people. Him, the regional, his boss, game warden, a biologist, regional, and a local biologist with body counts on. I'm not a criminal people. They pull up to my property, walk up, and I said to my local game warden, I said, you invited, you have the 3, you're not going to my pens, you're not invited. We had a little discussion. The local game warden gets in my skid steer, which I go into my pens with all the time. And the biologist, which I told was not welcome, crawls in regardless. Now the spots go this long. Okay. I said, all right, we're going, let's get this over with. And I told him, I said, if my deer get real anxious, wild, I said, I don't raise pets. I raise deer to turn loose on my hunting operation. I said, if they get the least bit wild, we're not going to kill them. We're getting out of my pens. I'm running this. So we go in there. First of all, the biologist gets out of my skid steer onto my property, opens the gate into my pens. I pull through. He is inside my pens, which, by the way, I tested suspect 2 years ago. DWD. Western blot came back not detected, but I'm still under y'all's jurisdiction. He gets out of my skid steer on open country, steps into my pens, gets back in the skid steer. We go in and we set in the skid steer and they count from deer, read every number. Okay? We're satisfied. I turn the skid steer on, start back out. He gets, the same biologist gets out of the skid steer in my pens to open the gate. I drive through. He gets back in outside my pens. No protection on his feet. No disinfectant. Nothing. Where had they been the day before? Where did they go the next day without any protection? I went to Robert Williams' massacre of his deer herd. There was no one required to sanitize their feet. There was a dishpan, and I asked Alan Kane, I said, what's that for? He said, that's disinfect feet, brush shoes. We were not required to do any disinfecting in or out. I went in twice and came out twice. At a positive in depopulation night. People, I've dealt with animal health people all my life. I was born in the dairy business in 1953. Background cattle. We had 10,000 laying hens. I worked artificial inseminating turkeys when I was a little boy. I've been a well-rounded animal person. But for people to come in and take my place over just because they can. And this disease is supposed to be so devastating. Has our deer herd really lost any population since the disease came in the state? Does anybody know that? Have we actually seen any decrease in population of our deer herd? No. It fluctuates from year to year, is what I've been told. If this is such a devastating disease, then why haven't we seen loss in population in our deer herds. Wild, I don't know. Breeder deer, yeah, we've lost the population because we killed a bunch to test them. Now, back to the parks and wildlife. I really had a hard time taking the people coming in on me, acting like I was a common crew. When they're actually the crews. Y'all people are elected to sit on this board commission. Those people are appointed by our governor, by election. And you people. I trust y'all. Trust them. I told them never to come on my property. I hope y'all understand where I'm coming from. I really hope. I appreciate everything concerning the disease. Any animal, any poultry. This CWD is a nationwide political USDA federal funded paid for to kill deer to test. That's all. That's all it is. I had one suspect, have not lost another deer. She never, the last result, Western blot not detected in all tissues. I've not lost any more deer. How many, they want to kill all my deer. I wouldn't let them. That's like killing a set of peppers that test positive for something because and killing everything else that those peppers went to a show or whatever, just because they were associated. Let's get this CWD crap under control, especially the rules your friends across the Kansas state, town, have implemented to destroy people's livelihoods and deer's lives. That's all I'm asking. Let's get a hold of this and quit playing the game, money game. That's all it is, boys. That's all CWD is. It's a disease, but it's not going to kill all the deer. It's going to kill a select few that, like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS. It's not contagious. You're susceptible to it. It's not contagious. I've done a lot of studying in the 2 years I'm a dumb old rancher. But I've been well-rounded. How many of y'all have ever carried the pint jar of the stinkiest stuff you ever smelled on horseback? The doctor is screwed warning. We don't want that. We want them flies that we turn loose and help. I was a little bitty boy, little bitty horse, every day. Thank you. Take care of the deer people too. It's not just wild deer. Y'all are hurting the deer breeders. We're a good bunch of people. We love our animals. People across town that don't like it. Money, wherever else. Thank y'all.
Thank you very much for your opinion. Okay. One thing left on the item, that is to adjourn. I didn't think to welcome all of our guests and visitors. We appreciate all of y'all being here and invite you back anytime you can come. Acknowledge you. We'll stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody.